Chapter 618 Activation. Zhuamo's business was open. Ever since Princess Xia's visit, Zhuamo's estate had become a popular place. The families that thought themselves possessing some power all offered olive branches to Zhuamo. All kinds of mo weapons, all kinds of rare treasures, and some families were so generous as to even give jie to Zhuamo. Zhuamo accepted them all. He was profusely grateful in words but did not mention anything else. These factions did not mention it either. This was just them feeling out the road. Zhuamo was something rare, but nothing had started at this time. It was not the time for them to truly give their prices. As to these things, they were nothing to these large and powerful factions. Inside the estate, the gifts piled up in a mountain. There were many precious treasures, but Zhuamo was not very happy. There was no news yet of a Wen and the others. They seemed to have disappeared into thin air. Zhuamo had practically asked all the factions in Great Peace City but hadn't found anything. Luo Lishiti was still in seclusion. Zhuamo was very worried about his condition. Sometimes, there would be a thread of life, but most of the time, there wasn't any vitality. The state of affairs in Great Peace City was complex. Even Zhuamo could not predict which way it would develop. He was something rare and desired. In other words, everyone knew him. There were countless pairs of eyes staring at him openly and from the shadows. With the slightest misstep, he would die. What he was most worried about were a Wen and the others. This mastermind was able to remain so composed, and it put great pressure on Zhuamo. He could only wait patiently. Other than waiting, there wasn't anything more he could do. Every day, he had to suppress the restlessness he felt, be patient, and cultivate. Yet at this time, an invitation from City Master Shi was delivered to him. When Zhuamo arrived at a room hidden deep in the Great Peace Palace, there were already 8 people inside. The people greeted him when they saw him. Right now, everyone in Great Peace City knew that Zhuamo was a person important to the opening of Great Peace Treasure Pavilion. All the families hoped to develop a closer relationship with him and had friendlier smiles. Shi Yi, Chang Yuanhao, Yu Shuang, Princess Xia and the others were among those present. Moments later, more people came in. About an hour later, the room closed up. Zhuamo looked around and inhaled in shock. This room contained almost all the important personages in Great Peace City. What was happening? Zhuamo thought inside. The first to speak was Shi Yi. I have invited everyone today because we have intelligence on the Xiuzhe in Great Peace City. Then Princess Xia stood and bowed to the crowd. She said, "Those Xiuzhe are very well disguised. If it wasn't that they first lost to Mr. Shao, it would really have been difficult to detect them. We secretly sent people to investigate all recent newcomers to the city and finally had a result today. However, there is trouble. Many of them are still hidden, and our investigations have already attracted their attention." The room was very quiet. The people present were all leaders and naturally could hold their composure. Princess Xia wasn't timid at all. She was at ease and her seductive eyes now flashed with an intelligent light. I suspect that Xiuzhe sects like Kunlun probably had spies in Great Peace City a long time ago. Otherwise, how could there be such a coincidence that they knew that the Great Peace Treasure Pavilion is about to appear? These Xiuzhe still won't give up on eliminating us. Yu Shuang shorted coldly, his expression frosty. Princess Xia smiled and brimmed with strong confidence. Elder Yu is right, and we shall give them a memorable lesson. Princess, tell us what arrangements you have. On this matter, there is no reason for us to refuse. One person shouted. The others all agreed. Princess Xia's eyes turned. This plan requires the support of Mr. Shao in order to proceed. Me? Zhuamo pointed at his nose and looked dazedly at Princess Xia. Princess Xia blinked her eyes at him. You are not kind to drag me into this. Inside Princess Xia's residence, Zhuamo waved his arms around in displeasure. Princess Xia was smiling in front of him. However, aren't you the person with the greatest grievance against Kunlun? How can this be called pulling you under the water? Princess Xia said innocently. Mirth flowed deep in her eyes. Zhuamo was unable to form words. He had been the one urging this matter. Princess Xia was correct. But this completely disrupted his previous plans. He had originally wanted to help urge this matter forward and strike at Kunlun using the MO. But now, it became him going forward to give Kunlun a blow. How could he remain calm? Yes, he had a grievance against Kunlun. But if he went to make trouble for the other before he was strong enough, that was just throwing meat buns at the dogs. Mo knew just how vicious Kunlun would be. Great Peace City was full of experts, but no one had the certainty of victory when facing Kunlun's experts. The Xiozhou were stronger than the Yaoma, and Kunlun was the most powerful sect in the Xiozhou realm. In other words, Kunlun was the strongest sect in the world. The other three great sects were also terrifying titans. Facing the experts sent by the four great sects, other than having an advantage in numbers and being in their territory, the MO didn't have any other advantages. This would be a hard battle. Mo was able to imagine the ferocity of this battle. He could feel it even in his toes. If he wasn't careful, his little life would end. This was also why he wanted to borrow a blade to kill someone rather than going for it himself. Yet what he had never expected was that Princess Xia had put the most important step of the plan onto his shoulders. This almost caused him to spit blood. If this was someone else, Mo would want to kill them. Almost as though she saw Mo's concerns, Princess Xia comforted, "Do not worry, no one would let you die. You are very valuable right now. You did not see those people. They wanted to shove all their guards at you." Mo's expression almost seemed to cry. "Don't force me in like this, I only have one life." Princess Xia burst into laughter. "As expected, you are cowardly and afraid of death. Adding on your shamelessness, you cannot be saved." "Yes, yes." Mo's head bobbed like a chick eating rice. "I'm afraid of death. Very afraid. Princess Darren, please spare me. You truly want to pass upon a chance to capture them all in one go?" Princess Xia looked wryly at Mo. "For you, I borrowed Exen and Wan's guards. They are all very powerful experts. Even Chidiao Yu agreed to help." Mo's mind shifted upon hearing this. He thought of Princess Xin's guard, Xia, and Princess Wan's butler, Juku. These two were of unfathomable power. Nothing had to be said more of Chidiao Yu's power. He was a top power in Great Peace City. Adding on Chang Yuanhao and Yu Shuang, the team was pretty terrifying, and it should be enough to deal with Kunlun. If this was another time, it would not be an easy matter to gather so many experts together. Mo gritted his teeth. Princess Xia said smilingly, "You really have a deep grudge against Kunlun." Mo was silent. He had to be even more careful when he spoke to this woman. However, he could feel that Princess Xia did not have malicious intentions, so he said honestly, "Yes, deep, bloody grudge." Princess Xia was a little shocked, before smiling. She said gently, "Then you won't regret it." "I hope so." Mo turned his face around. "How should I start?" Entering the Great Peace Mo's skill steals again. For some unknown reason, Mo felt slightly emotional. This period of time had been like a dream, and too many things had happened. He didn't even have the time to sort out his thoughts. The events came one after the next, and he didn't even have a chance to breathe. How were one and the others now? Mo's mind was heavy as he slowly walked between the steels. He was in a dispirited mood. Today, there were many people visiting the Great Peace Mo steels. Ever since the news of the Great Peace Treasure Pavilion had spread, the number of people that were headed towards Great Peace Mo steels had multiplied. Everyone wanted to find clues to the Great Peace Treasure Pavilion from these stone steels. As he thought, without realizing it, Mo went deep into the steel forest. There were not many roaming around here. This was the deepest part of the steel forest. Every steel here was cryptic and profound. If one did not reach the stage, it would be indecipherable. Even the people that copied down the Great Peace Mo steels were too lazy to copy down all the contents here, because for most people, they would never need such profound content their entire life. Ever since having an epiphany here, Mo had never come to the steel forest again. Walking here today, he started to browse these stone steels. The content on the stone steels was not unfamiliar to him. He had a complete copy of the Great Peace Mo steel writings, and had memorized the content. He did not understand all of it. He was just at the edge of domain, and there was still a long way off from reaching the peak of general. A lot of the content was very profound to him. Seeing the time was still early, he found a random stone stele and started to read phrase by phrase. Unconsciously, he immersed himself. What this stone stele was talking about was domain. Shi Ziming had his own understanding of domain. Zuoremo seemed to see an old man talking enthusiastically in front of him. His body was so weak and withered that a wind could blow him over, but those eyes were unusually dark and bright. A moment later, Zuoremo gradually recovered and everything returned to normal. The stone stele was silent. Where was the old man? Zuoremo laughed. He had been too immersed, so much that he was seeing illusions. However, when he noticed the darkened sky and the surroundings, he found it was terrible. Not good. He had been too focused and forgot what he had come to do. A round silver ball appeared on his hand. There seemed to be a layer of light flowing around the silver ball. This silver ball was the most important part of the mission this time. He was about to crush the silver ball on his hand when he saw a row of characters on a stone stele out of the corner of his eye. He froze as though someone cast a body paralysis curse on him. He stood there motionless. Chapter 619, World. What is he doing over there? Lan Rong couldn't help asking. Lan Tianlong was also slightly confused. He looked at Zuoremo that was in a daze between the steles and said uncertainly, "Did he drink today?" He probably wouldn't have. Such an important event today. Lan Rong's expression was slightly ugly. He suddenly recalled what had happened after Zuoremo had got drunk at the Great Peace Palace last time, and the rest of his words faded. The two Lan brothers looked at each other with strange expressions. Behind them, a smile came onto Princess Xia's face. She turned and ordered, "Tell them, pay attention to what is happening." A servant silently left. Xiao Emogu is young, but he can keep his composure. Yu Shuang couldn't resist praising. Princess Xia brushed away some locks of hair on her forehead and smiled. One that isn't composed cannot lure out those Xiozha. They have come in alone, and it is shocking how long they have prepared for this. There probably are many of them in Great Peace City. If we are not careful, our plan will fail. Yu Shuang smiled and said, "Princess Xia is peerless. Even I would fall for this. City Master Shi is probably stirring them into an uproar right now." In Princess Xia's plan, Shi Yui would gather the major factions inside the city today to discuss how to deal with the Xiozha. He would make a big furor and gather all the factions inside Great Peace City. However, the true experts would be hidden near the Great Peace Emo steles. The bait for the entire plan was Zuoremo. Any faction with some power knew that Zuoremo was a crucial piece of how to get into the Great Peace Treasure Pavilion. Even though no one knew the reason, there were countless eyes that stared at every action Zuoremo made. The Xiozha would definitely be paying attention as well. He quietly appeared at the steel forest and pretended to appear as though he was searching. If these experts did not know Princess Xia's plan beforehand, they would definitely think that Zuoremo was searching for the entrance to the Great Peace Treasure Pavilion. He also lingered for a whole afternoon and had waited long enough for the Xiozha to gather. Zuoremo had a star-luring Emo ball. This star-luring Emo ball was one personally made by Shi Yui. It only had one use: it could cause one star to fall from the sky. There would be great noise, and the Emo matrices inside the Great Peace Emo stele would activate at the same time to create an illusion. The Great Peace Treasure Pavilion was about to appear. This was the bait to lure the Xiozha. Princess Xia gave the Xiozha a dilemma. If they were slightly hesitant, they would lose the opportunity. Even if the Xiozha knew this was a trap, would they gamble on it? This was actually a psychological battle. What Princess Xia gambled was that even though the Xiozha had sent people in before this, the spies of the Xiozha would not be able to penetrate the upper ranks of major Mo families. Only a few knew of this plan. Those that knew were the leaders of each clan. It was very unlikely for people like this to be spies for the Xiozha. They were coming in alone, and without sufficient intelligence. Facing such a realistic trap, there wasn't much room for the Xiozha to choose. Princess Xia wanted to use this plan to get all the Xiozha in one swoop. The place that they were hiding was very hidden and at the edge of the steel forest. This was the place where the Anwei family usually spied from. For this mission, Princess Xia really paid a great price. The plan was not complex, but all the elders praised it. If it was them, there was a high possibility that they would also be fooled. This is because of the support from all the elders, Princess Xia said with a smile. Chang Yuanhao suddenly moved forward a few steps. At the same time, a strange look flashed across Yu Shuang's eyes. Everyone's gaze moved towards Zhuo Mo inside the steel forest. Qi Diaoye's expression changed slightly as his eyes lit up. He stared hard at Zhuo Mo. The blurry figure in the distance suddenly emanated an indescribable feeling of danger. This guy? What was going on? When consciousness and Ling power reach an extreme depth of the body, the world will reappear. The short phrase placed in the corner of the steel was not eye-catching at all. This stone steel was discussing the three powers, and this phrase was not something attention-catching among the text. However, what attracted Zhuo Mo's attention was the word world in this phrase. This word was in a different writing than all the other steel text, as though someone had written it on the steel with a finger. Zhuo Mo had browsed through almost all the Mo skill steels. All of the content on the steels had used the same style of writing and were exquisitely carved. If one did not notice the word world, they would have missed it. Even if one noticed, they would have thought that someone had made a mistake when engraving the steel and then corrected it. But when Zhuo Mo noticed the strangeness of this part, he froze where he stood. Because he understood this phrase. When consciousness and Ling power reach an extreme depth of the body. He had used this technique when he had modified the Mo matrices for Bi Han's Sin Battalion. When consciousness and Ling power reach deep into the body, the world would truly become different. He would enter a wondrous state where he was calm and emotionless. Truthfully, Zhuo Mo did not like this state, but this state gave him the feeling of being inhuman. He was like a puppet that did not have life or emotion. He would be precise, but without any spirit. When world was put into this phrase, it caused his mind to shift. Did this world have another meaning? Zhuo Mo thought for a moment and then decided to try it. He channeled and the suns of the 10 Crow celestial apparatus lit up. His consciousness and Ling power continuously moved deeper into his body. His mind started to become cold. His emotions seemed to be bared in an extreme environment without any warmth. His eyes became cold and indifferent, his emotions quickly disappearing. A thin layer of gold light appeared, but there was also a hint of white. A new world appeared in front of him. Countless half-transparent lines crisscrossed between the stone steels. The entire steel forest was like a cage made from countless lines of light. The stunning scene in front of Zhuo Mo did not cause any change in emotions. He moved his head, his eyes were emotionless as he looked at the surroundings. A faint handprint appeared on some of the stone steels. The stone steels which had handprints were the stone steels where the most threads intersected. He did not pause. He walked in front of a stone steel and pressed his hand on the faint handprint on the stone steel. An extremely light tremor came to his hand as though there was a tremble very deep in the earth. It was unusually small. If Zhuo Mo wasn't in this state, he definitely would not have detected it. Zhuo Mo could accurately capture every ripple. The ripples had an unique rhythm. In this state, Zhuo Mo's Mo skill was at its maximum. Without even thinking about it, the muscles in his hands trembled and responded to the stone steel with the same rhythm. The trembling of the stone steel suddenly stopped. In Zhuo Mo's eyes, it suddenly became bright. Countless streaks of light flowed into the other steels along the half-transparent lines like water flowing outwards. Zhuo Mo's expression was indifferent as he appeared in front of another stone steel which had a handprint. Those inside cannot send anything out. A shitty next to Lin Qian shook his head. He tried his best to communicate with eyes, but there hadn't been any results. Eyes had been summoned to Great Peace City to discuss how to deal with the Xiuzhe. But the Great Peace Palace was blocked off from all communication with the outside. They could not pass any messages out. It seems that these Mo are not stupid, another shitty said with a smile. He smirked coldly and said, trying to redirect our attention so crudely like this, they really underestimate us. Lin Qian's eyes were suspicious. He suspected this could possibly be a trap. All of their information was supposedly broadcast by Xiao Emogu. They had learned that the mysterious woman they had fought with when they entered the city had been Xiao Emogu's personal maid. Fei Fei probably lost his life when he entered the other's residence. No matter from what angle, Xiao Emogu had enough reasons to want to deal with them. It wasn't as though it was unlikely for him to plan such a trap. But what surprised Lin Qian was what happened when he saw Xiao Emogu the first time. This was the first time he saw Xiao Emogu, even though he had heard this name countless times before. In the report from Eyes, Xiao Emogu was a crucial part of opening the Great Peace Treasure Pavilion. He had caused the shifting star sands, defeated Xin Yu who had comprehended the Peacock King Plume, obtained the reversed stellar revolution, reached the edge of domain, and was a genius youth that had recently attracted attention in Great Peace City. Lin Qian was the first-ranked disciple among the third-generation disciples of Kunlun. He knew more than most people. He noticed that Xiao Emogu's name had also appeared in the intelligence reports from the Yao. It had also been a youth called Xiao Emogu who was a young battle general that defeated Gold Battle General Corps Commander Yu Heng, completed a prison-breaking battle, and astounded the Yao realm. He suspected that these two were the same person. If they really were the same person, then it was frightening. Such a monstrous person would be rare even in Kunlun, which was full of geniuses. So the moment that he saw Xiao Emogu's name from Eyes report, Lin Qian decided, no matter what, he had to kill this person. When he thought about the consequences a person with such potential in the Yaoma camp would bring, he couldn't restrain his murderousness. But when he saw Xiao Emogu, he was very shocked, because he felt a strange sense of familiarity from Xiao Emogu. He was sure he had never seen this face before, but this sense of familiarity was so clear. He had definitely interacted with Xiao Emogu before. When a person reached cultivation of his level, a wrong feeling would almost never appear. The sword essence he cultivated was profound and he knew that his sword heart would not lie to him. Yet when he thought it over in his mind, he could not understand where he had seen Xiao Emogu before. It was a pity there was no time. Lin Qian sighed inwardly. If he was meditating, and his sword heart was clear, he would definitely identify the other. He quickly threw the stray thoughts to the back of his mind. He looked at Zhuo Mo with a sword-sharp gaze. Suddenly his expression changed. In his eyes, Xiao Emogu's presence suddenly changed dramatically. In Lin Qian's eyes, Xiao Emogu was like a Mo puppet, empty and cold. This was... Lin Qian was shocked and suspicious. Then he saw Xiao Emogu reach for a stone steel. A moment later, Lin Qian's expression changed drastically. There was movement deep within the earth. Chapter 620, Lie Becoming Truth. This place is quite ghastly. Ming Juzi muttered. They had been trapped for so many days and still hadn't found the exit. The Black Smoke Yao said with self-recrimination, "It is all my fault. If it wasn't for me..." "Old Black, that's all right, this might be our good fortune." Nan Yu hurriedly comforted the Black Smoke Yao. "There are many people outside that want to come in, they wouldn't expect that we got ahead of them." Song Zhe added with a smile, "Old Black, think hard. We are putting our hopes on you to find the treasures." Awen was slightly worried. "There is no way to enter the 10-finger prison from here. Darren would definitely have gone there to look for us." Everyone was silent. The orange-haired Yao spoke up, don't worry, he is loyal, he won't abandon us. Worst case, we will find a few more treasures and give him a few." "Where are there any treasures?" Ming Juzi looked around and said dispiritedly, "This place is dark, and I doubt we are even in the Great Peace Treasure Pavilion. We've been searching around for so long and still haven't found the exit." That day, the Black Smoke Yao had made a discovery and came excitedly to find them. They had gone in search following the clues, and hadn't expected to fall into a maze that was pitch black. The maze was dark and didn't have anything. However, the paths were complex and intercrossed like a spider web. They had been searching for the exit for the past few days but hadn't made any progress. "We are below the Mo skill steals. Is there another place here except the Great Peace Treasure Pavilion?" Song Ze's expression was puzzled. "Who knows?" The orange-haired Yao said carelessly. "That old man has been dead for so many years. Do not be disrespectful to Grandmaster Shi Ming. Awen glared at the orange-haired Yao. We have benefited from him these past days. If not for the Grandmaster, where would these skill steals come from? The orange-haired Yao was not angry and muttered, I didn't say that he wasn't good, but if he is a good person, he should be good to the end. He engraved the skill steals, and he should give us some treasures as well. Then he would be a good person. A very good person. Oh, don't worry, I won't take them all. The other people were used to the orange-haired Yao's casual and thoughtless words. Everyone laughed. The black smoke Yao's brow was tightly furrowed. Ever since they had dropped into this pitch-black maze, he had been thinking of ways to get out. It was because of him that everyone had ended up in this predicament. Even though no one blamed him, he could not forgive himself. Fortunately, there weren't any dangers in the maze, so they were not very nervous. Ever since they entered the maze, the black smoke Yao had been pondering why there would be a maze under the skill steals. He believed that a person like Shi Ming would have his own reasons for doing every single thing. This maze would definitely have another purpose. If that was the case, it should have an exit. His spirit consciousness spread out as he carefully searched the surroundings. In such a dark environment, the consciousness was much more useful than the eyes. Suddenly, his consciousness swept a rock and he abruptly stopped moving. Wait! Everyone stopped warily. What is it? Nanyu asked. We passed by this rock yesterday. The black smoke Yao crouched down and picked up a rock by his foot. His tone was unusually certain. It is this one, I remember it clearly. Have we been going in circles all this time? Nanyu was slightly shocked. Very possible. The black smoke Yao raised his head to look up. We might just be wandering in circles below the skill steals. Then he said to himself, so this is a recursive maze. The path we pick each time is different, but we are still going in circles. All paths lead to one. Oh, I understand. He suddenly moved his gaze and said to the orange-haired Yao. Big Orange, hit the ground a few times. The orange-haired Yao immediately became energized. He had been suffocated these past few days. He rolled up his sleeves. No problem. How big of a hole? I will show you guys a new Yao art that I comprehended recently. It is the best at making holes. If you want a circle, I won't give you a square. If you want 3 zhang, I won't make it 5 zhang. Ooh, do you want something slightly more difficult? Flower shape? Too common. Or maybe a portrait? Nan Yu and the others were speechless. But Awen was excited. Such a powerful Yao art? How about we compete? I recently comprehended some things as well. The orange-haired Yao was excited and hurriedly ran in front of Awen. All right, let's compete. Let's make a portrait. All right. Awen was excited as well. 5 zhang deep is good. But everyone disregarded the black smoke Yao's weak voice. Everyone's attentions were put on these two that were going to make portraits. Nothing more had to be said about Awen's talent. The orange-haired Yao appeared absent-minded and slightly odd, but his talent in the Yao arts was usually unexpected. He could always make some strange and weird Yao arts. Who do you think will win? Ming Ju was full of interest. Nan Yu said, Awen. Song Zhe hesitated and said, Big Orange. Ming Ju looked at the black smoke Yao. The black smoke Yao said helplessly, Big Orange. Ming Ju snickered. I favor Awen 2-on-2. The orange-haired Yao postured as though he was an expert, hand palm up, he beckoned at Awen. Young man, I will not go easy on you. However, young man, your life will become more complete after losing to this loyal orange-haired Yao. Awen stared back, not backing down. Come on. Red-haired monster, let me show you what the first expert of guard camp is like. Looking at Zhuamo's ghostly figure and indifferent expression, everyone felt danger that could not be pushed away. Every one of them had grave expressions. Those present were all experts and naturally could see the change in Zhuamo. Princess Xia's lips were tightly pressed together and her expression changed slightly. Xiao Mo Gu in the distance seemed to have changed into a completely new person that she felt extremely unfamiliar with. However, she quickly suppressed the stray thoughts in her mind. Xiao Mo Gu was the crucial part of the entire plan. His change would affect the plan hugely. Up until now, Xiao Mogu had not used the star-luring Mo bead in his hand, and he was moving in ways that people did not understand. Princess Xia suddenly had a realization. Xiao Mogu had found the Great Peace Treasure Pavilion. Once this thought appeared, her expression became ashen. Her previous plan had been to create an illusion that the Great Peace Treasure Pavilion was about to appear in order to lure the Xiozhi out. She had never thought the act would become truth. Once the Great Peace Treasure Pavilion appeared, the entire plan would be full of flaws. The morale of the Xiozhi would be at their highest and their counterattack would be unusually fierce. On the opposite side, the MO experts would be targeting the Great Peace Treasure Pavilion, so they would each have their own plans. The alliance would fall apart. Under such circumstances, the plan that had been flawless would become a mess. At that time, this place would become a melee battle. Melee battles were the most advantageous for the Xiozhi. What worried her even more was Xiao Mogu, who would be at the center of the melee battle, would be placed in the most dangerous situation. Her expression quickly recovered and she said indifferently, "The Great Peace Treasure Pavilion is about to open. The plan has changed. Everyone charge in and keep the Xiozhi out." Princess Xia's words caused everyone to shake. They looked in disbelief at Princess Xia. Their attention had been on Xiao Mogu's transformation. While they had felt that his actions were slightly strange, no one had connected them to the Great Peace Treasure Pavilion. Princess Xia's gaze flashed across the pairs of eyes that had started to burn. She combed her hair and smiled. "Everyone, be careful of Xiao Mogu's safety. If those Xiozhi want to act against Xiao Mogu because they are unable to get the treasures, they might ruin this for all of us and then we won't have anything. He is still useful now, and at such an important time, I hope that the elders present will not hold anything back." Everyone's gazes met and then moved away. Yu Shuang stood up and said with a smile, "We need to show something to these Xiozhi. Otherwise, they will think that there are none capable among us. They dare to come and go as they wish. Do they think this is their backyard?" The other people also rose. Chang Yuan Hao and Yu Shuang walked together. The guards led by Xia protected Princess Xian and the guards led by Zhu Ku protected Princess Wan. Qi Diaoyu was moving by himself. In a flash, the alliance fell apart and each camp was clearly divided. "You have intentions about him?" The middle-aged attendant beside Princess Xia suddenly spoke. Princess Xia glanced at her and asked back, "What do you feel? Then why are you helping him?" The middle-aged attendant stared at Princess Xia and said coldly, "You know very well that if you enter this conflict, you will have nothing to do with him anymore." Princess Xia smiled slyly. "Don't you feel that it is to our advantage to direct their attention towards Xiao Mogu?" The middle-aged attendant's expression eased slightly. She said coldly, "Don't do anything stupid." Princess Xia seemed to not hear it. She raised her head to look at Xiao Mogu that was reaching towards a stone stele and suddenly said, "You just couldn't wait." The middle-aged attendant's expression froze. The stele in front of him was the last MO skill stele that had a handprint. The half-transparent thin threads in his vision were as bright as rays of light. Ripples moved along these crisscrossing lines like waves against the shore that came from all directions towards this stone stele. The moment that Zhuo Mo's palm came into contact with this stele, a strong vibration pulsed from the stone stele. Even the ground under his feet seemed to be violently shaking. There seemed to be an ancient being which was suppressed here that seemed to shift. Zhuo Mo's expression was cold and indifferent, void of all expression. In response to the enormous tremors that came from the stone stele, the muscles on Zhuo Mo's plan were quickly vibration at an astounding rate. At this moment, all lights stopped simultaneously. But in the next second, the lights that had paused seemed to be startled away and then redirected towards the stele from all directions. Boom! A ray of white light suddenly came out of the stone stele. Like a ruler-straight sword of light, it pierced the sky and entered the void. The white light was like a burning flame that moved towards all directions. In a flash, all of the MO skill steles released a fierce white light. The ground was trembling fiercely, all of Great Peace City was trembling. Great fissures started to appear on the ground around the steel forest. Then the steel forest started to slowly rise. Boom boom boom. The steel forest that was covered in rays of light slowly rose. There seemed to be an enormous beast underneath it that was pushing it up. That blinding ray of white light was like a rope that was pulling the steel forest up. And beside that ray of light, a cold and indifferent figure gazed down at the ground under the white light. Chapter 621, One Sword Strike from Lin Qian. Start! Start! A Wen and the orange-haired Yao shouted at the same time and moved simultaneously. A Wen's eyes were widened, the black plumes on his armor stood on end and vibrated in unison. He was slightly crouched, his arms pushed out as though he was about to hug someone, as he breathed and suddenly pushed down. The ground under his feet soundlessly sank. A deep hole with smooth walls was formed. It was as though there was a diagram on the ground made with a tool. The outline was clear and sharp. The orange-haired Yao shouted strangely. Lightning flashed across his body and crackled. His orange hair exploded into a poof. It was hilarious to watch because he was still shaking and swaying his head. The ground underneath him was crumbling and disappearing at a visible rate underneath his feet. The hole's outline traced out a picture. A picture of woman appeared in front of everyone. Nan Yu and the others were stunned. They all had admiration in their eyes. These two were clearly a level above the rest of them. These were two freaks. When Owen had acted, they hadn't detected one vibration at all. The outline was so clear, the lines looked as sharp as if cut by a blade. It showed just how stunning Wen's control of power was. They found that they understood even less about the orange-haired Yao's Yao art. It had actually caused the dirt to crumble from the inside. Even though it was lightning, it was corrosive and uncanny. "Hey youth, you aren't too bad." The orange-haired Yao was slightly shocked. "Next time, I will defeat you," Owen said, undaunted. Under the shocked gazes of everyone else, the two started to compete fiercely again. Each working on their portrait. Isn't this a gue? Young person, so you have been secretly pining for a gue? The orange-haired Yao pointed at the portrait under Owen's feet as he shouted. "Idiot! You need to call her a gue Darren." Owen glared angrily and then snorted coldly. A gue Darren's beauty isn't something that a common person like you can understand. A gue is a good girl, but not a beauty. The orange-haired Yao shook his head and said smugly, "What I drew is a beauty." Owen stared for a long time at the drawing under the orange-haired Yao's feet. His expression suddenly became slightly strange as he muttered, "Why does your portrait seem a bit like old black?" The black smoke Yao's body trembled and then he charged over. The orange-haired Yao had a smug expression. Young person, you are right. In the past, old black frequently cross-dressed in the Yao art house and bewitched many men. The black smoke Yao's eye twitched continuously. What had happened in the past was something he was unwilling to mention. This damned person. He was on the edge of losing his temper. The other people retreated perceptively and looked sympathetically at the black smoke Yao. Just as the black smoke Yao was going to explode, there were violent tremors from the ground. Almost everyone was unable to stay standing up. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Did we dig through the maze? The orange-haired Yao had an excited expression. Idiot! The other people whose expressions had changed couldn't help but curse at him simultaneously. The shaking of the ground increased in intensity. A great noise came from deep within the ground like an ancient beast that was waking up from its slumber. Damn it! The ground is rising up. The black smoke Yao's expression changed dramatically. Everyone's expressions abruptly changed. With the MO appearing, Lin Qian no longer doubted that the stunning scene in front of him was a trap. That ray of light that shot straight into the sky and the vibrations that came with it was enough to show the terrifying power it contained. This power was so strong that even Lin Qian felt his heart tremble slightly. In this moment he felt some respect for Grandmaster Shi Ziming, who he had never met before. In a blink, his gaze became clear again and that ripple in his mind disappeared without a trace. He did not think further on who Xiao Emoga was. At this moment, that was not important. The air around him suddenly exploded. The dense sword essence spread into the surroundings without any more concealment. In this moment, he was like a treasure sword that was drawn from its sheath, no longer concealed its sharp edge. Around him, every person showed excitement as their fighting spirit rose. The sword essences gave off different colors of light. Each person was like a sword wanting to drink the blood of their enemies. Does everyone remember the plan? Lin Qian looked around and asked. Yes. All of them were solemn. This mission is related to the glory and decline of our Kunlun. We may break our bones and our bodies, but we will not retreat. Lin Qian's expression was determined. No one could look directly at his burning eyes. He slowly drew out his flying sword. Will not retreat. The group responded in unison with serious expressions. Fanatic flames flashed through their eyes as their flying swords appeared in their hands. Lin Qian turned around and suddenly raised the flying sword in his hand. He shouted, "For Kunlun." All of his Ling power suddenly boiled and his presence rose to a peak. In the night, his sword essence was like a tangible burning flame. Within the darkness, in this land of ink, he displayed his power without any fear. Lin Qian's fighting spirit and enthusiasm infected every Kunlun sword xiu. The fiery passion they felt caused their Ling power to boil. All of their terror and timidness disappeared. Fighting spirit burned every inch of their skin and they reflexively shook. At this moment, for Kunlun, even if they were to die, they would not frown one bit. They raised their flying swords in unison and shouted, "For Kunlun." Before the sound dissipated, Lin Qian flew into the sky first. He turned into a sword light that tore the night sky as he shot towards the steel forest that was rising up. The other people saw this and moved without hesitation. In this moment, the sword howls were like a tide and the lights were like rain. The force that the pillar of light gave off as it rose disturbed the air. The turbulence caused Zhuomo's clothing to flap in the wind. He looked down. He saw the MO experts that were flying over and the blinding sword lights. He saw the experts from the other sects that had sneaked into the city. That pair of emotionless eyes looked indifferently at all of this. His MO skill had been channeled to an extreme, while his consciousness and Ling power were still streaming deep into his body. This icy world became increasingly clear in front of him. The rest of the steel forest was continuously rising and the spot he was standing in had started to sink. The steel in front of him was the entrance to the Great Peace Treasure Pavilion. Treasure Pavilion's entrance. Someone shouted and this caused a ruckus. The area that was sinking was very small and not even 2 zhang in radius. Watching as Zhuo slowly sank down, the experts that were rushing forwards felt even more urgent. Even the sword lights from Kunlun sped up and the howl from the swords increased in volume. Take control of the entrance. Yu Shuang shouted. The other MO hesitated slightly and then made their decision. They gritted their teeth and leapt at the incoming sword lights. If Kunlun gained control of the entrance, no one would be able to enter. The disciples of the other 3 great sects moved at the same time, but their presence was lacking compared to Kunlun. Almost all the MO targeted Kunlun. Facing the MO that was charging at him, Lin Qian was fearless. With a clear hum, the sword light grew. The high-pitched howl suddenly became low and deep. Like a meteor crashing down from the sky, it smashed towards its enemies. Protect eldest Shixiang. The sword xiu that had been following behind Lin Qian suddenly increased in speed. Like a flower blooming, they drew out elegant curves as they moved to intercept the other MO experts. They did not pay any attention to the enemy in front of Lin Qian. Everyone had absolute confidence in eldest Shixiang. The person in front of Lin Qian was Yu Shuang. Yu Shuang's pupils contracted into pinpoints. The other did not have any room to retreat, and his sword essence was determined. He shouted, "Come!" His body was immediately covered in green MO matrices. The green MO matrices were unusually beautiful, the lines thin and complex. The entire MO matrix looked like a blooming green flower. With Yu Shuang as the center, the complex and fine blue flower matrix spread into the surroundings. Bright pink roses bloomed from these green matrices and it was beautiful to see. This was Yu Shuang's rose greenery domain. Suddenly, all the roses shook slightly. The petals crumbled soundlessly. In a moment, the pink roses around Yushuang turned into a sea of flower petals. The pink rose petals were torn into pieces and slowly became green at a visible rate. The green rose petal pieces seemed to be caught in a wind. It turned into a green flower wind that headed towards Lin Qian. The Mo that noticed this all felt their hearts shake. Yushuang's first move was his famed killing move, Green Flower Rain. There was a strange energy field between every green flower petal. The innumerable flowers that appeared in the flurry of petals was the result of the countless fields overlapping on each other. It formed a terrifyingly powerful bog. Once one was trapped inside it, even the strongest power would be restrained by the energy fields. It was like being trapped in a bog. The person would move slower and slower until they were unable to move. Countless numbers of people had fallen to the green flower rain. As Yushuang's power increased, and his fame spread, it was rare for people to see this green flower rain. So when the Mo saw Yushuang's green flower rain, they became excited. The unique and strange power of green flower rain was the bane of the sharp sword essences. They seemed to see this sword Xiao being tangled up like an insect in a spiderweb. The fighting spirit in Lin Qian's eyes heated up. The flying sword in his hand seemed to feel his excitement and uncontrollably hummed to respond to its master. The flying sword in Lin Qian's hand was not an ordinary one. It was the famed sword Teia. The body of the sword was like a clear spring and exceptionally nimble. Facing the rain of green flowers coming at him, a burning light lit up at the tip of Teia. It seemed to be a spark created by Teia scraping against the air. What was strange was that the sword did not turn red, but became even clearer and transparent as though it was made of ice. Lin Qian's left eye was as red as fire, and his right eyes as blue as ice. This, like a sharp blade slicing through cotton cloth. The resilient and sticky green flower rain was cleaved apart by this single sword blow. Yushuang gave a muffled grunt. His eyes were filled with shock and fear. A thread of blood slipped from the corner of his mouth. One move. He was defeated in one move by Lin Qian. Who was this person? His one strike shook all of the Great Peace City. Zuarimo was unaffected, as he slowly sunk into the ground looking indifferently at Lin Qian's stunning blow. Chapter 622, Anti-Dragon Claw. Lin Qian's single sword strike had intimidated the entire battlefield. Yushuang was ranked second on the Great Peace Mo ranking. In 100 Savage Realm, he was a top-ranked expert, but he was wounded by a single blow. Lin Qian was still midair as he held Teia. The light at the tip of Teia was as bright as the sun. There wasn't any of his usual gentleness. His red and blue eyes were filled with pride, arrogance, and disdain as he slowly glanced over everyone. His movements were extremely slow, but it held a suffocating pressure. No one dared to meet his gaze. The entire battlefield was silent. The Mo of Great Peace City lost their nerve after seeing Lin Qian's sword strike. All of the Kunlun disciples looked with heated gazes at eldest Shixiang, who in turn was looking down at all present. They felt excited and wanted to roar. Kunlun! We are Kunlun! Eldest Shixiang's peerless stature as though he ruled the world was deeply imprinted in their minds. I have not asked for Sir's name? Chang Yuanhao's voice broke the silence. Everyone finally woke up from their shock and looked at this youth holding the sword. Even the disciples of the other three sects had ashen complexions as they looked at Lin Qian, who was like a god of the sword in the air. Floating in the air, Lin Qian did not seem to hear this. He descended step by step with his sword drawn, walking as though there were invisible stairs under his feet. He was at ease, but no one dared to block him. Suddenly, 3 figures appeared before Lin Qian and stopped him in his steps. Zhu Ku, Xia, and the middle-aged attendant. Ah, these old bones of mine are going to get damaged today. Zhu Ku said to himself smilingly. Xia did not say a word, but the long spear in his hand suddenly flicked up. The middle-aged attendant looked at Lin Qian with a dark face. Lin Qian did not pause. He walked down from the sky as though he didn't see the 3 at all. As Zuamo's figures slowly sank into the ground, the sound outside was blocked off. He entered a new world. Half-transparent threads crossed in the air. Other than these threads, There was nothing else in the surroundings. Some of the threads formed a path that seemed to be made out of spiderwebs. Zhuomo's field of vision. Zhuomo advanced following the path. With every step, a mo matrix would appear out of the emptiness and support his foot. The spiderweb path spread into the distance, and it was possible to see thin threads along the way. Zhuomo noticed these thin threads seemed to be gathering in one direction and the same direction as the spiderweb path. As he moved forward, this became even more evident. Even now, Zhuomo did not know what these thin threads were, and why he could only see them in this state. The thin threads increased in density. Zhuomo suddenly stopped in his steps. He lifted his head. The scene in front of him caused a ripple even in his present state of mind. A claw was tangled up by countless threads in the air. This claw was enormous. It was like a high mountain peak reaching into the clouds. Even looking from a distance, he could feel its peerless enormity. In front of this enormous claw, Zhuomo was as minuscule as an ant. But what truly had caused a stir in Zhuomo's mind was not the enormity of this enormous claw, but that he had seen this enormous claw before. Anti-dragon claw. This is impossible. Wei and Pu Yao's exclamations sounded at the same time. Zhuomo had seen this dragon claw before. When Wei he had disguised himself as his previous master, he held a claw that was identical to this, except it was smaller than. The anti-dragon claw had landed in Shi Ziming's possession. Pu Yao murmured. He looked dazedly at the mountainous anti-dragon claw, and a glimmer of tears appeared in his eye. Many distant scene appeared in front of him. That peerless beautiful face that had changed his entire life was so clear. Even the years which could corrode anything didn't seem to have left any mark on it. Wei was silent, his face sorrowful and reminiscing. Zhuomo suddenly stepped towards the anti-dragon claw. Stop, quick stop, don't go near it. Pu Yao and Wei were frightened by Zhuomo's action. Their expressions changed and they warned him. But Zhuomo seemed to be possessed and didn't hear their shouts. His steps did not falter at all as he continued to walk towards the mountainous anti-dragon claw. Thu, thu, thu. The rhythmic beating grew clearer until it shook people's minds. As Zhuomo went closer, the power of the beating increased. The source was the anti-dragon claw. It seemed to have a heart that was continuously beating. When Zhuomo walked under the anti-dragon claw and raised his head, he truly felt the colossal nature of it. That peerless pressure caused his mind to waver. But Zhuomo's eyes were tranquil, cold, and indifferent. It was alive. When Zhuomo's hand touched the anti-dragon claw, he could clearly feel the terrifying power and strong vitality contained underneath the scales harder than metal, as well as deep unwillingness. Don't move it, it is not something you can use now. Pu Yao's voice was so urgent it changed in pitch. Zhuomo did not seem to hear Pu Yao. The half-transparent threads in his vision seemed fragile but securely restrained the anti-dragon claw so that it was unable to move at all. Wei said rapidly, "The anti-dragon claw is one of the 10 celestial mo weapons. It is not something that you can subdue now. Only martials are able to subdue them. Master had been a martial and almost lost her life when subduing this." The anti-dragon claw seemed to hear Pu Yao and Wei's words. Zhuomo could feel the claw laughing at him for reaching far beyond his limits. Its heart was beating even more heavily. Vast power spread from it and the thick strands were unable to block off all of it. Thin threads that reached into the dark void would shake with every pulse, every beat. This power would reach into distant places. However, no matter how strong the anti-dragon claw was, it could not break free of the tens of thousands of slender threads. Zhuomo's expression did not change at all. His upraised face was cold and indifferent, and his eyes were icy. His gaze landed on a part of the anti-dragon claw. Within his vision, that was the place where there was the most threads. He suddenly flew up and gazed at the layers of thin threads. He suddenly reached out and pushed into this ball of thin threads. Pu Yao and Wei's faces became ashen. Suddenly, the anti-dragon claw stopped beating. The entire space sank into a silence. All vibrations, all sound, even the light on the thin strands stopped moving. A moment later, the entire space started to shake violently. Boom, boom, boom. All of the thin threads were violently trembling, every single thread. In this instant, even the anti-dragon claw gave off a nervous vibration. Suddenly, a legend that Pu Yao had almost forgotten flashed through his mind. A disbelieving look suddenly came out of his eyes as he blurted, "This is..." Boom! The space started to crumble. Lin Qian's hair was disarrayed and the light of the Taya sword in his hand was dim. The three experts had worked together to successfully stop his advance. All three of the experts were unfathomable in their power. They were not famous, but they were the strongest within their respective families. You should be proud to be able to force the three of us together. Zhu Ke's tone carried a thread of admiration. Before today, he had never thought that he would work with the two beside him to attack a young sword Xiao that was in his 20s. It had been more than a decade since he had fought, much less with the other two by his side. Such a great genius, even he had never seen one like this before. Kunlun, as expected of Kunlun. So terrifying. Xia did not speak, but his upraised long spear didn't dare to move away from Lin Qian. The most shocked among them was the middle-aged attendant. Her expression changed constantly and she was shocked. Her mother had served Shi Ming and she had been very knowledgeable from a very young age. After working hard on her cultivation in these years, she had reached the cusp of Shen power. She was also just one step away from martial level. Even so, she had to work together with other people to subdue this Kunlun youth. He really was terrifying. The other sword Xiao were also entangled up. Qi Diaoyu and the others were lacking compared to Lin Qian, but they were evenly matched to the other Kunlun disciples. The fighting between the two was extremely intense. The other three sect disciples also were fighting hard. The Mo were on home territory and they had the advantage of numbers. At this time, they were fighting in a fury, and they did not care about fatalities. There were Xiaozhe constantly dying and the situation was becoming increasingly disadvantageous towards them. Lin Qian appeared disheveled, but his left eye that was completely red became even more heated as his blue eye became even colder. His usually gentle smile was as sharp as a sword edge. He had predicted how difficult this trip to the Great Peace was, but he had not expected that he would encounter three opponents that were this powerful. These three people were extremely strong. The old man's Mo physique was also eerie and hard to predict. Even Lin Qian did not recognize it. Soul Mo Lure was one of the top Mo skills among the Mo and supposedly had been passed down from the ancient times. He was even more shocked by the male in heavy armor. That was gravestone armor. The middle-aged female had a strange power, and Lin Qian even detected a thread of Shen power from her. These three, any one of them, should be a top expert in the world. He was meeting three at once. Fighting 3 against 1. Lin Qian's fighting spirit burned. He did not have any timidness or fear. The Taya sword in his hand seemed to come alive again. He suddenly raised the Taya sword. The blue Taya sword was like a sword of ice as a tiny light lit up at its tip. Holding the Taya sword, Lin Qian drew with the sword in the air. The light of the sword drew out streaks of light in the air. They seemed to be lines drawn on paper and did not dissipate. With every stroke of the Taya sword, a roar of thunder would sound. The three people facing him changed expressions. They recognized the power. All the power in the surroundings were vibrating uncontrollably with the strokes of the Taya sword. They were just about to attack when their bodies froze. They abruptly turned around to look at the steel forest behind them. In this moment, their faces were filled with shock. Chapter 623, The Dragon Claw Coming into the World. Is there really a great peace treasure pavilion? The subordinate asked curiously. Of course, Bu Heng replied without turning his head. He gazed at the ray of light that reached into the sky and was slightly absent-minded as he thought of other matters. Ha! Brother Bu is peerless in your intelligence and has set up a gigantic trap. This little brother has never respected a person but has to say I respect Brother Bu. The one who spoke was a large man that looked to be in his 40s. He had a pair of bright eyes. Brother Ming is too complimentary. Bu Heng bowed slightly and said with a smile, if it wasn't for Brother Ming, this one would not dare to act so dangerously. Going with the flow, Brother Bu is a true genius. Ming Hui clapped his hands and praised, "You have such an elite battalion. If you can take this Jia, the power of the Yaksha clan will increase exponentially. The Yaksha clan's prosperity is in sight." "I do not think so." A beautiful female next to Ming Hui couldn't resist smiling coldly and said, "The world respects the authority of great peace. We have already broken unspoken rules by preparing to attack them. If Bu Darren leads the Yaksha clan in taking this territory, people will most likely come to attack you." Ming Hui hurriedly said in apology, "Brother Bu, please forgive. This one has spoiled sister very much. Do not keep her nonsense on your mind." Bu Heng shook his head. "Brother Ming does not have to be so. Miss Yue is right." He suddenly raised his head and gazed at Great Peace City in the distance. He said lightly, "However, how can there be a perfect solution in such troubled times? If one does not advance and retreats, they will die without a fight." Ming Yue was startled when Bu Heng said such harsh words in such a light tone. If one does not want their clan to have to submit to others, then one needs to have a place of their own. My Green Yaksha clan has roamed for too long. The clan's people have a hard life, and the branch families mostly live as marauders, living off banditry. Bus wishes to conquer a place for my clan to rest. These are troubled times, but even if this was a peaceful time, Bu might still fight. Ming Yue was stunned by the speech while Ming Hui showed admiration. He said with a laugh, "Brother Bus' words are great. A man should be like this in life. However, in my opinion, there is nothing wrong in raiding. It is an exciting life." Bu Heng's subordinates looked with respectful and reverent expressions at Bu Heng from behind him. This little brother can only envy the freedom of Brother Ming. However, there is nothing to be done about ties to the family. As for the future attacks that Miss Yue speaks about, it is possible, but there is nothing to worry about in the short term, Bu Heng said confidently. The major factions that are close to great peace are too busy fighting against the Xiuzhanao and do not have attention to spare. If Brother Ming cleans up all the traces and not leave anything behind, no one can find an excuse to attack us. Also, if I have a buffer time, I will definitely be able to create an even stronger battalion. The last words were steely and strong confidence was evident. This little sister has worried too much. Brother Bu, please forgive my rudeness just now. Ming Yue suddenly bowed with a serious expression. Bu Heng hurriedly returned the bow. Miss Yue is too polite. Brother Bu seems to be very familiar with the Great Peace Treasure Pavilion. Can you tell us more? Ming Hui said. I only know that there is a stone stele within it. Bu Heng said gravely, I do not know much. It was just coincidence that I learned some things. There are 3 treasures in the Great Peace Treasure Pavilion. I know of one of the others but not of the last. What is the other treasure? Ming Hui was very curious. Bu Heng slowly said, Anti-Dragon Claw. Ming Hui and his sister's expression changed dramatically. Ming Hui exclaimed, Sky Missouri weapon Anti-Dragon Claw. Impossible. A hint of desire flashed across Bu Heng's eyes but it quickly cleared up. It really is one of the 10 great Sky Missouri weapons, the Anti-Dragon Claw. I was also very surprised when I learned this. Brother Ming, you must know of the history of the Anti-Dragon Claw. While I do not know how Grandmaster Shi Ming obtained it, but since it was hidden for so many years, it seems that even the Grandmaster had been afraid of the inauspicious history of the weapon. Ming Hui recovered from his shock and said when he heard this, inauspiciousness? If a MO weapon is auspicious, is it even a MO weapon? Something used to kill, it is best for it to be inauspicious. His gaze was burning hot. I am even more curious about the last treasure. No matter what, it is Brother Ming's. Bu Heng's expression was normal. However, Brother Ming, do not let any of them escape. Huh? Brother Bu, don't worry. My Ming bandits have a nasty reputation but we do not break our word. Ming Hui laughed viciously and said, Those young masters are the top-notch fat sheep. As to the 3 princesses, they can be maids for sister. Brother Ming needs to be careful. The 3 princesses all have experts with them, Bu Heng reminded. Brother Bu, many thanks for the reminder. Ming Hui said laughingly, Against an army, The experts are just so. Ha! It wasn't a waste to come, we will definitely make a profit. Suddenly, Mingyu Wei's gaze moved and her expression changed slightly. She pointed at Great Peace City in the distance and shouted in shock, "Look!" Everyone followed her finger and looked. Their expressions all changed. The pillar of light that connected the earth to the sky suddenly disappeared. At this time, the steel forest was pulled up hundreds of zhang from the ground. Looking from afar, they were like a lonely pillar of stone, but nearby, people unconsciously stopped breathing when they looked at them. The sides of the stone pillar were smooth as though they had been cut and polished. The black material was as warm as jade. The area taken over by the steel forest was over hundreds of mu, and when they were all pulled up, the thick stone pillar covered with exquisite emo matrices was a wondrous sight. The Black Sea outside Great Peace had been restless starting when the Great Peace Treasure Pavilion had come out of the ground, and wailed like ghosts. Yet at this moment, the sea quieted. All of Great Peace City sank into a strange silence. A stone steel dropped from above the stone pillars and shattered when it hit the ground. This was... Everyone had shocked expressions and a strong feeling, it was coming. The stone steels continuously fell down. Following that was a string of cracks. Countless lines quickly spread across the thick black pillar. In a blink, the cracks covered all of the stone pillar. The suddenly changed shocked everyone. They unconsciously stopped fighting and looked at the stone pillar that was about to transform. It was not a loud sound, but it was like a signal. The stone pillar covered in cracks began crumbling apart. Fragments of various sizes came down like a rock slide. The people close by paled and hurriedly flew into the air to retreat. As they flew and looked back, their pupils contracted. They couldn't help but stop breathing. Oh heavens! Above that pile of rock, an enormous dragon claw that was hundreds of zhang large was floating in the air. The anti-dragon claw that was seeing the light of day again seemed unusually excited, and the 5 digits lightly tensed. Boom! A vast vicious energy suddenly ripped into the surroundings like a violent tide. Careful! Zhu Ku and the other two disengaged from Lin Qian and appeared immediately in front of their respective princesses. Boom! Light lit up on the bodies of the three as they managed to stop the vicious energy that reached them. Every one of them had a serious expression. The guards around them were blown away by the violent wave of energy like dried grass in the wind. Lin Qian's expression was shocked as the Teia sword was braced in front of him. When the vicious energy swept past, the Teia sword hummed and shook violently. Qi Diao Yu, Chang Yuan Hao, and the others managed to withstand this vicious energy. But those that were weaker were wounded if they tried to resist. After the wave passed, it was completely silent and everyone had ashen faces. This item was so vicious it was shocking. Just its energy was so powerful. How terrifying would it be if it was used at full power? At this time, the ones that were still standing were either experts from Great Peace City or from the 4 major sections. But when these experts raised their heads to look at the enormous dragon claw, their minds wavered. Anti-dragon claw! Someone shouted and everyone shook. Even Lin Qian couldn't help the expression of shock that appeared on his face. As the eldest disciple of Kunlun, he naturally knew of this name. Anti-dragon claw! Zhu Ke's gaze became unfocused for a quick moment before he quickly recovered. However, the heat in his eyes could not be disguised. The other people also had burning gazes. Anti-Dragon Claw, one of the 10 great Sky Missouri weapons. No wonder it was so powerful and vicious. Sky Missouri weapon, the strongest MO weapons. Every Sky Missouri weapon was a legend. Of the 10 great Sky Missouri weapons, there were only 3 whose locations were known, and the people who possessed them were the strongest in the MO realm. It was the MO weapon that everyone MO dreamed of. That was... Everyone's gazes focused and landed on the shadow cast by the lower half of the anti-dragon claw. It was Xiao Mo Gu that had just went underground. One of his hands was touching the anti-dragon claw. His eyes were closed as he silently floated in the air. Compared to the enormous size of the anti-dragon claw, Xiao Mo Gu was as small as an ant. Adding on that he was in the shadow of the anti-dragon claw, no one had initially noticed him. But when people noticed his existence, their expressions changed. Lin Qian's expression changed slightly. Even he had felt pressured by the power of that vicious energy, but Xiaomoge hadn't reacted at all. He was trying to claim the anti-dragon claw. When this thought flashed through Lin Qian's mind, the next thought was, stop him. He still did not remember who Xiaomoge was, but his intuition told him this was someone dangerous. Lin Qian's murderousness was burning, but he did not act. He was searching for the stone steel of legend. He did not understand why he felt such strong murderousness towards Xiaomoge, but at this moment, the stone steel was more important. With the stone steel, Kunlun would find the key to cultivating Shen power. His gaze suddenly focused. In the pile of stones under the anti-dragon claw, there was a small section of a gray and nondescript stone steel showing. Without hesitation, Lin Qian shot at that steel like lightning. Also at this time, Zhuomo's tightly closed eyes opened. That pair of indifferent and icy eyes reflected everything. He was like a god in the air, coldly gazing down at the figure moving so fast it was near impossible to spot. Chapter 624, Attack. The other people present might not have spotted Lin Qian's charge, but Zhu Ku and the two others who had fought against him had been keeping an eye on him. They were extremely wary of Lin Qian. When Lin Qian moved, the three moved in tandem. Murderousness filled their minds. Previously, the situation had been unclear and they had other considerations. Now with the anti-dragon claw in the air, the MO skill steel below, the treasure pavilion reappearing, they had no other considerations. Their murderousness could not be suppressed. Midair, light flowed through the red and blue eyes. His long hair danced in the wind. Lin Qian knew that this was the time when victory was to be decided. He suddenly shouted, Kunlun! Kunlun! The sword Xiao of Kunlun responded. Almost at the same time, they threw their flying swords at Lin Qian. Light rose in the air as the swords flew across the sky. The 7 flying swords had 7 different sword essences. Cool and dim, or blinding and bright, or pressuring, or heavy, they were all from Kunlun. While they were different, they were all passed over to Lin Qian at the same moment the 3 people moved, the 7 sword lights flashed and had gathered in front of Lin Qian. At some time, Lin Qian had turned around and faced the 3 people. His expression was grave, his right eye cold as ice, his left burning as fire. The 7 sword essences crisscrossed in front of him and formed a 7-colored wheel. His upraised Taya sword tip was the center where the 7 swords spun. A dot of light suddenly was emitted from the sword tip. Kill! A sound came from Lin Qian's tongue. The air in front of him seemed to be heavily impacted and exploded. The 7 swords revolved in counterclockwise direction like a flower blooming. The 7-colored wheel of light expanded to about 10 mu in size in a flash. It was like an enormous net that came crashing down on the trio. Inside the sword wheel, sword essence roiled like the enormous maw of a gaping beast about to consume the people. Zhu Ke's expression changed slightly as he shouted, "You want to die." The middle-aged attendant's gaze was cold, and she was clearly angry. Xia's right leg braced against the ground, the long spear raised as his presence increased continuously. Pew pew! 2 water droplets shot through the chest of a Kunlun sword Xiao and created 2 blooms of blood. The pupils of this Kunlun sword Xiao suddenly expanded as he dropped down. Bam! He fell onto the ground like a block of wood. On the face covered by the billowing dust, a slightly difficult smile slowly froze. Qi Diaoye's expression changed slightly. He had made a successful sneak attack, but he had intended to disturb these Kunlun sword Xiao. That killing move was clearly a battle formation technique. It was powerful, but it required a high level of teamwork. Qi Diaoyu had originally thought that when these sword Xiao were threatened, they would recall their flying swords. But this Kunlun sword Xiao would die rather than call his flying sword. Kunlun. For some reason, Qi Diaoyu felt a chill. Other people saw that In Zhuomo's hand was on the anti-dragon claw, but they didn't know that the anti-dragon claw was covered in invisible threads. Zhuomo's hand was among these threads. In Zhuomo's sea of consciousness. Pu dazedly murmured, 3,000 threads of worry? There really are 3,000 threads of worry in this world. When Wei heard Pu Yao's words, his body shook. Shock climbed onto his face. He exclaimed, 3,000 threads of worry. 3,000 threads of worry. Knowing the name of the threads wasn't of any help to Zuemo. The other ends of these threads had originally been tied to those skill steels, but now that the steel forest was destroyed and the steels shattered, these thin threads lost their anchors and floated in the air. They floated in the air like sea grasses and rippled with the wind. No one noticed their existence except for Zuemo. The area that Zuemo had reached into was where the threads were thickest, and the central part of the threads. He was touching a small bead, no, more accurately, it was a clear ball of something like mist. If it wasn't that his vision was modified by his state, and his hand was directly touching it, he would not have noticed it. But in his gaze, he could see that it was a bead. All the slender threads extended from this bead. When Zuemo touched this bead, all the thin threads that floated in the air and wrapped around the anti-dragon claw suddenly froze. The anti-dragon claw that had been so vicious and pressuring also froze. That transparent ball of mist suddenly became burning hot like molten metal. If Zuemo was in his usual state, his first reaction would be to release his grip and throw away the object. But at this time, in an inhuman state, Zuemo was unaffected. It was as though what was being burned was not his hand. He looked coldly at the bead without any change. The feeling of burning increased. Even though Zuemo had superior strength from cultivating the 10-crow celestial apparatus, he felt it was slightly burdensome now, and his hands started to tremble. In his vision, the threads floating and waving in the sky suddenly moved to wrap around him as though they encountered danger. The thin threads wrapped around the anti-dragon claw reflexively tightened. The anti-dragon claw started to tremble violently. The vicious anti-dragon claw didn't have any power to resist these thin threads. Facing the incoming threads, Zuemo did not dodge and reached out his left hand. The threads were unusually quick and tightly wrapped around Zuemo in a flash. Zuemo finally felt the suppression that the anti-dragon claw did. These threads were terrifyingly strong. Once he was tied, he felt as though he was unable to breathe. Even if his 10-crow celestial apparatus MO physique was the third-ranking MO physique in general level, it was as fragile as paper in front of such power. At this time, a light suddenly flashed across Zuemo's cold and emotionless eyes. He was an experienced hunter and had patiently waited for a chance. When the chance appeared in front of him, he did not hesitate. He suddenly acted. The death of his shitty did not affect Lin Qian at all. But in the depths of his icy right eye, an emotion that was hard to describe flashed and disappeared. His movements did not pause at all. As the sword wheel moved towards the three that were the greatest threat to him, he had already turned around. Like a large bird spreading its wings, he charged at the stone steel. The area in front of him was flat and without any obstructions. In the sky, the anti-dragon claw violently trembled. Xiao Gu seemed to be taming it. Lin Qian forced his murderousness down and still aimed for the stone steel. With Xiao Gu's present strength, it was akin to death to seek to tame the anti-dragon claw. It would be impossible to subdue such a vicious object without being martial level or having a special method. This was not something that could be solved by talent. Treasures like Sky Missouri weapons had to go through tribulations to form. There were too many chance occurrences required to tame it. Lin Qian didn't have any thoughts of taming the anti-dragon claw. As to the third treasure of the Great Peace Treasure Pavilion in legend, he was curious, but it was just curiosity. Up until now, he still hadn't seen it. However, even if he saw it, he would not act even if it was tempting. He only had one goal. The MO skill steal. He was extremely quick. At this time, there were no other people in his field of view. Even with his composure, his heart couldn't help but beat faster. If he could obtain the Great Peace MO skill steal, he had absolute confidence no one could take it from him. Even if he was the only one left, he had the confidence he could take the stone steel and kill his way back to Kunlun. Closer. Almost in his hand. Just as a hint of irrepressible joy flashed through Lin Qian's eyes, a figure suddenly shot out of the stone debris. Lin Qian's pupils contracted. His reaction was rapid. The Taya sword in his right hand stabbed at the figure. A blinding spark lit up on the sword tip of the Taya sword. Owen was covered in dust as he climbed out of the rubble. When the maze had suddenly collapsed, they had almost been buried alive. However, they reacted quickly. The moment the maze collapsed, they had cast Yao arts to protect themselves. Otherwise, with the Yao's relatively weak bodies, they would have turned to meat paste. At this time, the benefits of cultivating a mo physique like Owen did was clear. He fought his way out of the pile of stones relying just on his strong body. However, the moment he came out and without knowing the situation, a terrifying sword essence locked onto him. His expression immediately turned pale. The sword essence was so strong it was almost unimaginable. His soul almost left his body. But the harsh training of guard camp showed their results. His mind was completely blank, but his body instinctively reacted. The armored plumes on his body vibrated in unison as his mo skill was channeled to its maximum. The mo spear in his hand, he instinctively took a step forward, and a textbook stab was completed like lightning. Without any thinking, he breathed and shouted, "Kill!" At the tip of the mo spear, a thick black spear energy flashed and shot out of the void just in front of the Taya sword. Under the pile of stone debris, a purple arrow light suddenly flew out. It drew out a rule-straight streak of light in the air and aimed at Lin Qian. It was Nan Yu's South Sky Arrow Art. A layer of faint green-gray mist that rippled strangely spread towards Lin Qian's feet in a blink. Song Ze's Gray Scar Art. Both the purple energy and the green-gray mist had a watery tinge that was hard to see with the eye. Ming Ju's Waterwood Light Art. The ground under Lin Qian's feet suddenly crumbled. A strange field suddenly surrounded him. It was like an invisible rope that caught him. A man that can lasso a horse is strong and masculine. The orange-haired Yao's heartless laugh came from the pile of stones. The black smoke Yao did not attack but leapt straight for the stone steel. He knew that he was the weakest, but he was extremely smart. He immediately found the best way to disrupt the other's thoughts. Everyone had been working together for a long time and had built up their teamwork. In this attack, their cooperation and timing had been perfect. And this was the first fight after their power had increased. Every attack contained all of their strength. It was definitely their strongest ever attack. The killing intent filled the air. Chapter 625 Assimilation surprise flickered across Lin Qian's mind. He was not threatened by the power of these attacks, but what he was surprised at was that the mo skills and Yao arts these people cultivated were not normal. It was just because they were not strong enough yet to express the power of their mo skills and Yao arts that he was able to deal with them. Who are these people? Lin Qian was slightly shocked, but with the stone steel within reach, he did not plan on wasting time on these questions. The Taya sword did not waver as it stabbed forward. The spear energy, the purple arrow energy, the green-gray ripples, they all seemed to sink into a bog and suddenly slowed down. The Taya sword also shook once. Pia! The lights shattered. Wen and the others were sent flying as though they were hit with hammers. Lin Qian's body wavered slightly. His expression changed slightly. When the Taya sword had come into contact with the energies, he found that there was a layer of a faint and strange power covering them. Even so, he had the power to defeat them, but he hadn't expected that the restraining power that came from under him was acting one wave after another, in the form of 3 waves. With the 2 other waves interfering, he had lost slightly. His mind shook. He knew that he had underestimated these people. These few were not strong, but their teamwork was good. He also had let down his guard after the hard fight just now. Damn it! Lin Qian's retaliation was unusually strong. Including the black smoke Yao, everyone was thrown far away as though they were hit by charging wild beasts. Attacking in anger, Lin Qian's attack was very exquisite. Killing them was not as important as getting the stone steel. But when 2 figures suddenly appeared in front of him, Lin Qian's pupils abruptly contracted. For the first time, he stopped moving. A strong suction force suddenly formed from the spirit consciousness and Ling power inside Zhuomo's body. The slender threads were immediately pulled into his body without any warning. There was no change in his cold thinking. Like a puppet, Zhuo controlled his body. There were 3 treasures in the Great Peace Treasure Pavilion. When Zhuo saw the thin strands covering the anti-dragon claw, he realized that these slender threads restraining the anti-dragon claw was the 3rd treasure. In an icy state, Zhuo was unusually sensitive. The stone steel had reminded him that he could only find the world in this icy state. When he confirmed that these slender threads were the 3rd treasure, he thought that obtaining these threads would be related to his icy state. The icy state was produced because his spiritual consciousness and his Ling power continuously went into his body. These slender threads definitely had something to do with spiritual consciousness and Ling power. The slender threads continued to burrow into Zhuo's body. His thoughts were still calm. Zhuo's daring surpassed Pu Yao and Wei's expectations. They gaped with wide eyes as they looked at Zhuo's mad action. They almost didn't believe their eyes. Zhuo was slightly fickle, but it was rare to see him do such a crazy thing. Was this the influence of his present state? The 2 did not know, but their hearts were in the air. This guy is crazy. Pu Yao's voice trembled. It wasn't that he had never seen treasures before. He had been a Sky Yao. But because he had seen many treasures, he felt that Zhuo was insane. The more powerful the treasure, other than chance encounters, the more strength one needed. The top treasures all had intelligence and chose their masters. Those without strength would not be able to even tolerate the power of the treasure and would die immediately. Seeing a good treasure and charging up to grab it was the best way of dying immediately. Thinking how Zhuo was just in general rank now, his heart trembled. This guy is greedy to the bone. He doesn't want to live. Pu Yao gritted and shouted. He and Wei were both in Zhuo's sea of consciousness. If Zhuo died, they would naturally turn to dust with him. Wei was silent for a moment and then said with a smile, "Don't you feel that he has the mannerisms as master?" Pu Yao stilled. That face appeared in front of his eyes. He blinked, and a thread of pain in his heart dissipated. He said coldly, "She was martial level. The anti-dragon claw should not end up in the hands of anyone else." Wei raised his head and murmured as he looked at the enormous anti-dragon claw. The words voiced what Pu Yao thought. He was silent. "It is definitely impossible for a general to subdue the anti-dragon claw," Wei said directly. "I experienced the entire process of Master subduing the anti-dragon claw. With her martial strength, she still almost lost her life. The key to subduing is on the 3,000 threads of worry." Pu Yao was still silent. Wei raised his head to gaze at the anti-dragon claw and said, "Shi Ziming is a true genius and found something that is a bane to the anti-dragon claw. 3,000 threads of worry, it really is true to the name, even the most brutal power cannot hold against threads of worry." Pu Yao said solemnly, "I do not know much about the 3,000 threads of worry. I just know that it is one of the most mysterious Yao star cores. There are some rare mentions of it in history, but just a few mentions. It is said only those that cultivate both spiritual consciousness and Ling power can see it." Wei nodded. Zhuo's strategy appears to be correct. This boy is filled with strangeness. Pu Yao's tone became normal. After some thought, he suddenly said, "There is a stupid method to taking a Yao star core, it is to assimilate it." Just as his words came out, a light flashed across Zhuo's cold eyes. Assimilation. At this time, countless thin strands headed into the depths of his body. They were just like Zhuo's consciousness and Ling power. Following the rush of threads, Zhuo suddenly felt a thread of thought that was slightly timid. The Yao star core. Zhuo didn't hesitate, and the soul-setting divine light inside his body flowed like a fish along Zhuo's arm into the Yao star core in Zhuo's hand. The Yao star core suddenly froze. 3,000 threads of worry was suddenly filled with terror and panic. It was like a child that was scared and didn't dare to move. Even the slender threads that were moving into Zhuo's body froze. The soul-setting divine light pulled the Yao star core slowly into Zhuo's palm. Soul-setting divine light. Wei looked dazedly at this scene. The soul-setting divine light's inheritance had always been with him, but he had never comprehended it and didn't know that it was so powerful. Pu Yao was also slightly dumbstruck. Even the 3,000 threads of worry was so docile in front of it. The Yao star core merged into Zhuo Mo's left palm. When it completely merged into Zhuo Mo's palm, Zhuo Mo felt all the pressure restraining his body disappear. A handful of slender threads came out of his body and connected to the anti-dragon claw. At the center of the sun script on Zhuo Mo's left hand, there was a little star. It would be extremely hard to notice if one did not pay attention. Zhuo Mo was not content. Taking advantage of the chance, he raised his head and his cold gaze swept across the mountainous anti-dragon claw. The anti-dragon claw shook. Zhuo Mo had accepted Princess Xia's arrangements, but out of consideration of safety, he still decided to bring Gui and Seng Lianer along. At this most important time, the two appeared. Seng Lianer was dressed in black as she stood. Her gaze was blurred as she said serenely, Kunlun Sword Xiu, why come to our Mo territories to steal our treasures? Gui did not speak and looked expressionlessly at Lin Qian. Lin Qian's expression was grave and he did not seem to hear it. All of his Ling power was channeled. The Taya sword was held horizontally in front of him. A thread of blue appeared in his right red eye and a flicker of fire appeared in his blue left eye. His expression was devout. Kunlun. As though he used all the power in his body, the shout that came from his chest was forceful. Seng Lianer's onyx eyes suddenly became as bright as stars. Her serene voice was uncertain in the air. Kunlun Sword Xiu, so vicious, are you not afraid of karma? Her sleeve seemed to flow weakly towards Lin Qian. Just as Seng Lianer acted, purple energy flashed across Gui's eyes. Her hand suddenly flicked at Lin Qian. The moment the two attacked, under the sword wheel, Zhu Ku and the middle-aged attendant's expressions changed. Xia's body shook slightly. None of them had expected the two females with Xiao Mo Gu to be so powerful. For the first time, they felt wary of Xiao Mo Gu. What was the origin of this youth? Lin Qian ignored the attack from the two. His gaze focused on the Taya sword as he cut down without hesitation. Under this chop, all the air within 10 li seemed to solidify. In the world, there was only the Taya sword. The power from the three collided in a show of strength. Boom! The deep explosion exploded in people's minds. In this moment, everyone seemed to lose control of their body. Their blood and muscles shook. When the sound dissipated and they recovered, their expressions changed. On the battlefield, Seng Lianer's sleeve had exploded up to her elbows. A large hole that was 50 zhang was under Gui's feet. Other than the stone steel, everything else had been torn to pieces. A thread of blood flowed out of Lin Qian's mouth as he stared with his red and blue eyes at the two. He reached up to wipe the blood from his mouth. With his right hand holding the dimmed Taya sword, he said coolly, I hadn't expected to encounter two experts that cultivate Shen power. When these words came out, all the Mo present were shocked. Shen power. These two females cultivated Shen power. Seng Lianer was intimidated. Lin Qian stated the two of them cultivated Shen power because he wanted to make them the targets. If the other Mo had other desires, the situation would turn to chaos again. She detected the gazes that had all focused on her. Everyone's gazes became suspicious and hesitant. This man was really powerful and cunning. She knew that nothing she could say now could help. Once the seed of suspicion was planted, it could not be killed. So Kunlun Sword Xiu make a living based on their mouth. Seng Lianer said coolly. Her hands moved into a strange position. The purple energy in Gui's eyes increased. Lin Qian did not fear her and said with a smile, you might cultivate Shen power, but it is a pity. One has just started and the other's soul is corroded. You do not qualify to stop me. At this time, a cold voice suddenly came from the sky. Qualifications? What qualifications are needed to kill the people of Kunlun? Chapter 626, A Sword Strike and a Block. The one who spoke was Zhuo Mo. One of his hands was pulling the 3,000 threads of worry as his body hung from the anti-dragon claw. However, in the eyes of everyone else, his posture was very strange because they could not see the 3,000 threads of worry in his hand. Everyone on the battlefield turned to look at Zhuo Mo. Even Zhu Ku and the other two inside the sword will couldn't help but slow down. But the one most shocked was Lin Qian. His heart jumped. Had Xiao Emogu tamed the anti-dragon claw? Impossible. MO weapons like the anti-dragon claw were not something that general-level MO could tame. However, why didn't the anti-dragon claw respond? The anti-dragon claw was famed for its savagery and viciousness. How could it tolerate someone close to it? Lin Qian's expression was normal, but he was shocked inside. His murderousness towards Xiao Emogu was so strong, even he was surprised about it. But he had forcibly suppressed the murderousness. The stone steel was the priority, and he had thought Xiao Emogu would turn to ash under the backlash of the anti-dragon claw. But Xiao Emogu was untouched. This was unexpected to him. He suddenly found that there were too many unexpected occurrences today. The group of people emerging from the pile of rubble was unexpected. The two women who cultivated Shen power were unexpected. Almost everything unexpected was related to Xiao Emogu. Thinking about his thoughts of killing Xiao Emogu, Lin Qian grimaced. Had this been heaven's will? This thought only flashed through his mind and his eyes lit up again. The dim Taya sword rose again. His blue and red eyes were unfathomably deep. The situation was disadvantageous to him. He was already uncertain he could defeat the two women in front of him. Now add on Xiao Emogu. The sword wheel would not last for much longer. He did not have a lot of time left. He took a deep breath. At this time, all words were a waste to him. Only two words could awaken his fighting spirits and motivation. Kuan Luan. The light words were full of determination as it echoed. The other Kuan Luan sword Xiao changed expression. Eldest Shixiang was going all out. The dimmed Taya sword shook and suddenly released a blinding and burning light. The sparks flew off as the blade moved. Lin Qian stood up straight. His usually gentle brow was fierce and determined, and his face pale. He was like an unsheathed sword. The ground continued to tremble. The vast sword essence was like a lead cloud that weighed down on people. The ground underneath Lin Qian cracked, split and crumbled to form a perfectly round pit. The edges of the round hole was rapidly spreading outwards. It was unable to be stopped. At the same time, the Taya sword that was like a firework sparkler, it gave off a grievous hum as it melted. A hint of sorrow flashed across Lin Qian's face, but his movement did not stop. His sword arm decisively chopped into the air. The grieving hum of the Taya sword echoed through Great Peace City. The blinding light suddenly expanded and a terrifying sword essence immediately covered all of Great Peace City. As though a sun was rising at Great Peace City. A savage and vicious roar was like thunder. The ground shook as though it was being hammered. All of Great Peace City shook. The vast wave of air was like a hard wall that swept outwards. Those that were weak were thrown into the air as though they were hit by something. Even Zhu Ku and the other were almost unable to stay standing. All of them stumbled and had to use all their strength to steady themselves. The blood drained from their faces. Even they couldn't help but feel fear in the face of such a terrifying sword essence. The terrifying wave of air that was like a metal wall rolled through Great Peace City. When the light dissipated and the scene appeared in front of them, all of them had ashen complexions. More than half of the soaring structures in Great Peace City had been cut down. But when they recovered from their shock, they immediately looked towards the steel forest. Lin Qian stood upright like a sword. Between himself and Xiao Emogu stood a dragon claw. Near the two, the ground had been erased. Only the ground under Xiao Emogu had not disappeared. It was like a slice of cake had been cut from the earth and stretched out behind him. Zhua Emo used the anti-dragon claw to block this blow. At the crucial moment, he channeled the 3,000 threads of worry and pushed the anti-dragon claw in front of him to stop Lin Qian's sword strike. The anti-dragon claw had shrank after enduring this blow and became Zhua Mo's height. Zhu Ku and the others stared with wide eyes and looked in disbelief at Zhua Mo. Even they didn't dare to touch the power of that blow just now, and Xiao Emogu had managed to stop it. Xiao Emogu had really tamed the anti-dragon claw. They had no more doubts. If he had not done so, Xiao Emogu would not be able to stop the power of that sword strike with his own power. Lin Qian's strength shocked them, but Xiao Emogu's display was even more unexpected. A general level was able to subdue the anti-dragon claw. It was absurd to hear, but it happened in front of them. From the moment Xiao Emogu had appeared in Great Peace City, a string of impossible events had continued to occur. The worldly apparition shifting star stands, surpassing Qi Diao Ye's record, defeating Xin Yu who had comprehended the Peacock King plume, causing the Great Peace Treasure Pavilion to appear, and now subduing the anti-dragon claw and blocking that stunning blow. He was not favored each time, but he would always achieve victory. Xiao Emogu seemed like a freak, and there seemed to be a group of freaks around him. This guy. Lin Qian's eyes were stunned and his complexion was ashen white. He had not expected that Xiao Emogu could stop his blow. He had gambled everything on this blow. At a cost of wounding himself, and the Taya sword being destroyed, he had used a secret method to temporarily increase his cultivation in order to use such great power. He had never fought so hard, never. In past battles, he had always been untouched and at ease. He had never lost before, he was always full of confidence in himself. From a very long time ago, he did not participate in the tournaments between the third-generation disciples because his strength had even surpassed majority of elders in the sect. At his age, he stood as one of the most outstanding geniuses in Kunlun's history. Even deep in the Mo territories, he was not afraid. He had absolute confidence in himself. The sect leader had also been full of confidence in their mission. Everyone believed that Lin Qian would not have a match below martial level. Yet the reality in front of him allowed him to discover that his pride was laughable. A general rank youth that was younger than him had easily stopped his most powerful sword strike. Anti-Dragon Claw. Looking at the almost living Dragon Claw, for a moment, Lin Qian's eyes were dazed. The power of the Mo weapon? The Taya sword was lacking greatly compared to the anti-Dragon Claw. He knew this well. It was not that Kunlun did not have better flying swords, but the Taya sword was the most powerful sword that he could currently use. He did not have enough cultivation for the ancient and great flying swords sealed in the sword pavilion. But this guy who was just general level had tamed the anti-Dragon Claw. This completely upended his knowledge of the world. No wonder he felt murderousness towards the other. Was this a fated enemy? Lin Qian smiled. He was not an ordinary person and quickly recovered his calm. But he knew that he did not have any more power to fight. He had truly failed in his mission. He quickly recovered his confidence and the red and blue retreated from his eyes. He looked at Suemo and suddenly said in a loud voice, "This one is the first seated disciple of Kunlun, Lin Qian. Xiao Emogu, if you and I ever meet, let us fight again." Finishing, Lin Qian turned and walked away. Pew! The stone steel behind Suemo turned to powder. Yet at this time, no one dared to speak. Everyone was deeply attracted to this figure of extraordinary presence. Many people showed realization. The first seated disciple of Kunlun, no wonder he was so extraordinary. No one dared to stop him. The remaining Kunlun sword Xiao silently flew next to Lin Qian and formed a defensive perimeter around him. Everyone in Great Peace City would remember the name Lin Qian. But then everyone turned to look at Suemo. If it wasn't for Xiao Emogu, all of the Mo in Great Peace City would have ended up as side acts to Lin Qian. Many people felt great pity that the Mo skill steel had been destroyed, but compared to it being stolen by Lin Qian, everyone could accept the present result. This battle was fated to shake all of the Mo territories. They was undoubtedly a minor accompaniment in a battle like this, and it was a humiliation for them. In the eyes of the world, Xiao Emogu who had stopped Lin Qian was the hero of the Mo. This youth that had come out of nowhere and was of unknown origins. Along with this battle, his name would spread throughout the Mo territories. Yet no one realized that an even greater danger was silently marching towards them. Suemo was completely void of strength and unable to move. His eyes were filled with shock and fear. Lin Qian's blow had managed to force himself out of his icy state. If he hadn't used the 3,000 threads of worry to pull the anti-dragon claw in front of him at the crucial moment, he wouldn't have been unable to survive. Terrifying and unparalleled strength. Even if Suemo had a deep hatred of Kunlun, he couldn't help but feel terror at Lin Qian's power. He was unable to imagine how this person had cultivated. He had never underestimated Kuan Lun's power, but when he truly fought against Kuan Lun, he found that Kuan Lun's strength was even greater than he had predicted. Just one Lin Qian was so powerful, he really couldn't imagine it. Zuemo laughed. His thoughts of finding Kuan Lun and getting revenge seemed so laughable and out of his reach. But no matter how laughable and distant it was, so what? Who made it so that we had a grievance to settle? Fighting spirit flashed through Zuemo's eyes, and he became motivated again. His expression suddenly changed and he wailed, "Ague, Ague, help me, my feet are trembling, I can't stand up, can't stand up." When his gaze casually looked into the sky, he froze. There was a dense group of black dots in the air like a black cloud coming at a rapid speed. Zuemo's eyes were keen and his expression changed. That was a charging formation. He suddenly used all the strength he had and shouted at the top of his lungs, "Shu Long!" Chapter 627, The Ming Bandits. The estate that Shu Long and the others lived in was not left unscathed under Lin Qian's blow and collapsed. But because they had been preparing to leave, all of them were unharmed. When Zuemo's shout howled out, all of guard camp suddenly shot into the air like a drawn bowstring. With a few jumps, they appeared next to Zuemo. They had finished forming a battle formation in the air. When they landed next to Zuemo, they surrounded him in the middle. The movements was so dazzling that all those who noticed this scene had strange looks on their faces. "Find a Wen and the others?" Zuemo asked gravely. "Is everyone else here?" "All here." Shu Long nodded reliably. Behind him, several figures flew out and quickly found a Wen and the others. Zuemo noticed Xiaogua and Li Yingfeng among the group, and Li Yingfeng was carrying Luo Li on her back. His nerves immediately relaxed. When he saw Bi Han and Sin Battalion, his expression eased further. But his brow quickly furrowed again. The black dots in the sky became increasingly clear. The battalion that was flying towards them was astoundingly large. From the scale, it probably had more than 10,000 people. Bi Han, prepare to fight. Zuemo lost his politeness at this time and briskly ordered. Bi Han's cold face remained motionless. He nodded and turned to leave. "Miss Tseng, please give the command of the Celestial Planet Guards to me," Zuemo said with a serious expression. Tseng Lianer did not waste words and shouted, "Shou Ping!" "Present." Shou Ping immediately came out of the ranks. Miss Battle just now had frightened him half to death, and the reveal of Miss Strength had shocked him. "From now, you will be under Xiao Mo Gudaren's command. Anyone who disobeys will be executed." Tseng Lianer swept Shou Ping with a glance and said in a light tone. Shou Ping's heart shook and he responded respectfully, "Yes. The Ming Bandits. The Ming Bandits have come." In the sky, many MOs stumbled as they landed. Their faces were ashen and their expressions filled with terror. Ming Bandits! Great Peace City exploded. Even Zhu Ku and the others suddenly changed expression. Zuemo saw Tao Xing's bloodless face. His lips were trembling and he was clearly extremely terrified. Zuemo asked, "Who are the Ming Bandits?" Tao Xing's throat was dry and his expression as gray as it could be. "We are definitely going to die now." "Ming Bandits? Ming Bandits, they are a group of lawless bandits." "Lawless bandits?" Zuemo paused. At his side, some members of the guard camp had expressions of scorn. They had killed many bandits on their journey here. The strongest bandits. The one who spoke was Tang Fei. At this moment, this handsome young woman with a ponytail had a trace of fear on her face. "They come like the wind, kill people and are extremely cruel. Their leader is called Ming Hui. This person is an astounding genius. Even though he is young, he is only a step away from martial level. He has many experts under his command. They are all the elites of the other bandit groups that he has taken over. This person is extremely ambitious and is as sly as a wolf. He is someone no one wants to provoke." Zuemo understood some of this. After a moment of thought, he said to Tang Fei, "Starting from now, I'm going to command your battalion." Tang Fei opened her mouth but did not speak. Tao Xing heard this and his expression relaxed slightly. He nodded repeatedly and said, "Good, good, good. Tang Fei, listen well to Darren's orders." Tang Fei lowered her head and accepted the order. Yes. At this time, Zhou Emo did not have the attention to spare for Tang Fei's willingness or the lack thereof. The Ming bandits were coming quick and a hard battle would not be able to be avoided. Right now, anything he could get was something that he could use. Ming bandits. The middle-aged attendant's expression changed slightly. She raised her head to look at the incoming black cloud in the sky and gritted through her teeth, "I will take you and break through. You can escape. With your strength, you should be able to break out on your own. If you take me, you will not be able to escape." Princess Xia glanced at her. The middle-aged attendant said lightly, "We have been mistress and servant for so many years. I had my own intentions when I started, but I watched you grow up into a young woman. No matter what, I will not abandon you." She looked deeply at Princess Xia and said, "You have done enough for the Anwei family, you do not owe them any more. If you want to take the opportunity to go into hiding, this may be a good chance." A thread of warmth flashed across Princess Xia's eyes. With her hand she combed her slightly ruffled hair. "You are giving up? This is probably fate," the middle-aged attendant said lightly. However, her expression seemed to be relieved of a burden. "You have given up, but I do not want to surrender like this to fate." Princess Xia's smile blossomed and a differently light flashed through her eyes. The middle-aged attendant showed a hint of shock. "It is crueler to forget the things that one does not want to forget. Compared to him, I am much luckier." Princess Xia raised her face and her eyes seemed to be shrouded in mist. She murmured to herself, "In these years, I have muddled through and accepted the arrangements of the family. It was not for the Anwei family, but for father. Every time, I would think that the Anwei family was the blood and tears of my father, and I was unable to refuse their requests. Now I have thought it through. Since I do not want to forget, I will not forget. In the past, I was struggling in my memories and was moved by others like a puppet. When I think about it now, that me was really lacking." Her beautiful face slowly lit up. She stared into the sky and seemed to say to herself, "I have to become brave. The Anwei family is the work of my father, and the best way to pay respect to him is to inherit his last wishes and make the Anwei family prosperous. I need to stand up and not remain down. I will not be a puppet. I want to become the master of the Anwei family." The middle-aged attendant's gaze softened. She had seen how depressed Princess Xia had become after her father had passed away. She was silent for a moment before she said, "I will lead you out of here." Her tone held determination rare to her. Princess Xia took her gaze back and smiled mischievously. "I have a way. You have a way." The middle-aged attendant stilled. "They are surrounding us." Miao Jun's expression was grave. He was a gold battle general and had a broader view than other people. He quickly noticed the Ming bandit battalion that appeared at their flanks and rear. The other was trying to corral them in. This was the first time that he had seen the legendary Ming bandits. His mood was as dark as his expression was. As expected of the Ming bandits that were publicly recognized as the strongest bandits. From the initial charge to the maneuver to surround them, the transformation of the formation flowed like water. It was shockingly smooth. The troops looked unorganized, but the murderousness that came with battle experience caused Miao Jun's heart to tremble. After seeing this group of terrifying bandits with his own eyes, Miao Jun finally understood why no faction was willing to provoke the Ming bandits. Zuoremo grimaced. He could also see what Miao Jun saw. But his strength was completely drained and he had not recovered. He swept a look across Shu Long and the others. Their expression was normal, but everyone had been affected by that sword strike that swept through all of Great Pea City. Their offensive capabilities were also affected. The Ming bandit did not form a wall to surround them. Instead, they were strategically dispersed, maintaining appropriate distances between the groups of troops and did not expose any openings. Seeing this, Zuoremo knew that the enemy was an expert. However, the Ming bandits did not target Lin Qian's group. They were those who only bullied the weak. Zuoremo cursed them as he threw Lingdan into his mouth. He ordered Shu Long and the others to take the time to recover and receive the hard battle that was going to come. Suddenly, Zuemo noticed Princess Xia's group coming over. I know you have a way out, so I came to side with you. Princess Xia had a mischievous smile. Zuemo grimaced. What way do I have? Then what do we do? Princess Xia's brow furrowed as she looked pleadingly at Zuo. Even if you look at me, I can't create a way. Zuomo's expression was one of helplessness, but the next words that came from his mouth was completely the opposite. However, no matter if there is a way or not, we have to fight. His tone was not resolute, nor arousing, but a strong fighting spirit permeated from it. For some reason, Princess Xia immediately felt reassured. She smiled beautifully. I will let you take command of my guards. If I really die, it isn't much. We will live and die together. Cough, cough, cough. When Miao Jun heard this, he burst into coughing. Princess Xia was a beauty, and he felt he was unable to withstand her presence in that moment. Zuemo was not affected by the illusory spell. His mind was filled with potential ways of breaking through the encirclement. He did not refuse Princess Xia's submission. In his mind, Princess Xia was his friend and he also owed her a favor. He thought and then asked, How many guards do you have? About 300. Give their command to me. Zuemo did not waste words. All right. Princess Xia agreed without another word. A hint of admiration flashed through Zuomo's eyes at Princess Xia's decisiveness. Princess Xia's guards were quickly gathered and they were put under Zuomo's command. Zuemo immediately gave these guards to Miao Jun to lead. A gold battle general could not be wasted. The events that occurred after far surpassed Zuomo's expectations. It may have been that Bihan's battalion had the advantage of numbers, but many other people came to throw their lot in with him. Given their familiarities, Zuemo could understand when the Lan brothers came to him, but he didn't understand why Princess Xian and Princess Wan also came. But at this time, he needed more manpower and did not refuse any of them. His request to all of them was the same: hand command of their guards to him. The people also knew the urgency of the situation and cooperated. Zuemo had Miao Jun take command of all these guards. At this time, the Ming bandits had finished their encirclement. It was strictly enforced and any MO that tried to break through were killed on the spot. The pressure created by the army circling the city was suffocating. Zuemo felt extremely urgency. If the Ming bandits attacked the city at this moment, then they wouldn't have any power to resist. What he could trust the most right now was only Bihan's Sin battalion. There weren't enough of guard camps members here. Wen and the others were lightly wounded and their strength was affected. They needed time. Just as Zuemo was praying that the Ming bandits would not attack the city so quickly, whoosh, the Ming bandit battle battalions suddenly pushed forward. The tangible murderousness filled the air and swept them like an enormous wave. Everyone's expression changed. Were they about to attack the city? At this time, something suddenly happened. Chapter 628 Water Curtain. We are not far from Gu Liangdao's forces. Gong Sun Cha was off in a daze as he stared at the Jia map. They had been very fast. The string of hard battles at the start had caused their reputation to spread. The major factions along the way had learned to fear them. Also, with a Zhagu battalion at the front and many MO members in Vermilion Bird Camp, no one suspected that they were Xiuzha. The resistance they encountered was much less than Gu Liangdao. Also, as the people in front of them moved to clear out the way, the factions further up ahead copied them. As Gong Sun Cha's battalion continued to advance, their goal gradually became clear. The factions all noticed that if Gong Sun Cha's battalions continued to advance on this path, there was a high possibility that they would end up fighting Gu Liangdao. Was this unknown elite force targeting Gu Liangdao? Many people felt excited at this speculation. The power of Gu Liangdao had caused fear in the MO in this area. Some factions that were daring and were closer to Gu Liangdao's forces had their entire families flee. Gu Liangdao's advance was so persistent it robbed people of hope. If this elite battalion's target was really Gu Liangdao. When the MO factions along the way let out the path, they kept a close watch on Gong Sun Cha battalion with anticipation. It had to be said that Gu Liangdao was extremely lucky. The entry point he had picked was very good and there were no powerful factions in the area. Just as everyone felt hopeless, suddenly a powerful battalion appeared and had went on a long journey heading straight for Guliangdao. How could these MO in the area not feel hope? What really made Gong Sun Cha wanted to laugh was that some factions even sent messengers to ask and say that they were willing to offer reinforcements and supplies. Gong Sun Cha also felt wonderment at having becoming the savior that the MO looked towards. He naturally refused them. But these MO thought that Gong Sun Cha had refused because this elite battalion was too proud. They deliberately left out supplies along the road without anyone guarded them and permitted Gong Sun Cha and the others to take as they pleased. The factions further along the way copied them in unspoken agreement. This incorrect speculation didn't just increase the speed of the advance, it also greatly decreased the battalion's exhaustion. Gong Sun Cha's group was like a sharp dagger that flashed through one jia after another, until they were almost at the destination. What they were about to face was Gu Liangdao's battalion. Gu Liangdao might have encountered more resistance, but he had more manpower than Lil Mississippi. With the colossus that was Xixian behind him, he slowly pushed forward. His method was slow, but no one could stop his momentum. Old Field Jia. This little unknown Jia was Lil Miss Goal this time. According to the path that Gu Liangdao's advance was taking, Old Field Jia was to be his next target. Gong Sun Cha raised his head and his gaze swept across his commanders. Even though they had undergone a long journey, did not rest at all along the way, and exhaustion could be seen, their morale was high and they were brimming with fighting spirit. Xixian's Tiger General Gu Liangdao. Gong Sun Cha suddenly smiled. That pair of clear eyes like that of the neighbor's boy burned with fire. The commanders became alert. They knew that the true battle was about to begin. We need to win this battle. Lil Miss tone was gentle as though he was describing something ordinary, but every word caused the people to tremble as though electricity was sparking across their skin. Everyone stopped breathing and stood up straight. Only victory. The damaged Great Peace City was filled with rubble. The flat ground was now pitted and looked like a ruin. From the center of Great Peace Palace, a bright MO matrix lit up under Shi Yui's feet. Shi Yui's wrinkled face carried deep sorrow. Starting slowly grayish-white spread from the roots of his hair and eyebrows turned a dull grayish-white. He did not speak. The MO matrix that lit up under his feet was like a creeper vine that had woken from 100-year deep sleep and started to spread into the surroundings. Soon, all of the Great Peace Palace was as brightly lit by this MO matrix as though it was day. The light of the MO matrix did not stop. It spread along the damaged walls and continued to spread outwards. The MO matrices on the streets lit up, the MO matrices at the corners of walls lit up, the MO matrices of the buildings lit up. In a blink, all of Great Peace City was covered in the bright MO matrices. People suddenly found to their amazement that every corner of Great Peace City was engraved with MO matrices. Zuaremo also jumped in surprise. He looked at the MO matrices that almost covered all of Great Peace City and gaped. He could not imagine how they had carved so many MO matrices when they had constructed the city. Such a vast undertaking. The Ming bandits in the air were also surprised and scared by this scene. They retreated. "Teacher!" Shi Yui cried, the tears falling on the MO matrices below him. The MO matrices seemed to hear his sorrow. The light shook and then spread. He looked at the ruins of Great Peace City, looked at the Ming bandits at its borders. In a flash, the glorious Great Peace City had reached its end. His wrinkles became visibly deeper and he was rapidly aging at a visible rate. "Teacher, this student is useless." The teary eyes suddenly became determined. He raised his arms as though he was about to embrace the sky. Boom! The MO matrix light that covered Great Peace City suddenly brightened. The blinding light shot into the sky. This Great Peace City that Shi Ziming had constructed himself opened its eyes like a monster that woke from its slumber. The Black Sea surrounding Great Peace City started to rise at an astounding rate. It furiously rippled like there was something shaking deep down. The black curtain of water quickly rose from the Black Sea to form an enormous black water shield in the air which covered all of Great Peace City. The Ming bandits were shocked by this, suddenly retreated. Everyone was experienced and sensitive to danger. This water curtain looked thin, but they could smell the scent of danger. The people inside Great Peace City sighed in relief. Many people even cheer. At least they were safe for now. City Master! City Master! The alarmed shout startled everyone. When they looked towards City Master, all of them were stunned. Shi Yue stood motionless. His entire body was a pale gray-white. He seemed to be made out of rock and was entirely lifeless. He had turned into a statue. Princess Xia and the others were frightened by this scene. They covered their mouths with tears in their eyes. Many of the Great Peace City MOs started to sob. Shi Yue had been intelligent and gentle, authoritative, and was deeply loved by the people of Great Peace City. Zuemo looked deeply at Shi Yue and sighed inside. He had gotten a good feeling from Shi Yue, but he was not sad. The two had not had a deep relationship, and this was not the time to grieve. He flowed the MO matrix and looked around. He immediately had a grasp on the situation. Of the people present, he was not the most powerful, but he definitely understood the most about MO matrices. Shi Ziming was as powerful as expected. Zuemo was full of admiration. When he returned, he called everyone over. The water curtain will stand for 3 days. Zuemo lowered his voice and everyone's hearts shook. But the people seated here were not normal people. Even though they were afraid, they still maintained calmness on their faces. For them, this was good. 3 days was a precious time to breathe and rest. It was enough for them to recover the strength to fight. Even though in the eyes of some people, their combined fighting strength was still nothing in front of the Ming bandits. Everyone, take the time to recover. Zuemo turned to Miao Jun. Miao Jun, spend some time to organize these guards and train them. Miao Jun wanted to speak. Tempering before the fight, even if it isn't sharp, it looks good. Zuemo glanced at Miao Jun and then said, if someone disobeys, execute them. I understand. Miao Jun nodded and turned to leave. Zuemo called over the Lan brothers. Lan Tianlong looked at Zuemo and said, Brother Xiao, if there is something you need us brothers to do, tell us. Even if I have to put my life on the line, it is all right. Lan Rong also nodded. Brother Xiao, speak. Zuemo said in a low voice, 3 days, we can't just sit around and wait. There are so many people in Great Peace City and they can fight. Even though there is no time to train a battle formation, having more people is useful. The Lan brothers were thoughtful. We need to recruit more people before everyone else can react. The more people, the better. Zuemo said. The Lan brothers were smart people and immediately understood when they heard this. When the other factions started to react, it would not be so easy to recruit people. The two exchanged a look and nodded in unison, all right. Finishing, the two did not waste words and silently left. The 3 princesses looked at Zuemo and felt admiration. When everyone else was dazed and clueless, Xiaomoge had sent out a string of orders. His way of thinking was clear, his attitude decisive and without hesitation. The people around were infected by Zuemo's composure and they recovered from their panic. Without detecting it, they seemed to have gained some confidence. Even Zhu Ku and the others looked at Zuemo under a new light. They had originally thought that Zuemo was only talented in cultivation and hadn't expected that he was also outstanding as a battle general. Zuemo did not know what these people were thinking. He was in a mess on the inside. 3 days. 3 days, what could he do? Zuemo thought hard. The possibility of breaking through just with the manpower he had now was not high. He had to think of a solution. Your Highness. Fu Feng's expression was worried. Bi Han turned his head slightly. No matter what, you have to break through. Fu Feng suddenly said. Bi Han was silent until he suddenly asked, are the Ming bandits very strong? Fu Feng stilled and reflexively answered, very strong, they are the strongest bandits. Oh. Bi Han nodded and became silent again. Your Highness. Fu Feng was urgent. You have to promise this subordinate. No matter what you have. Bi Han raised his hand as he turned around. He interrupted Fu Feng's words. I will show them why they are only bandits. Chapter 629, Fight. Zhuo stared dazedly at the crowd in front of him. Looking out, almost half of all the Mo in Great Peace City were gathered in front of him. 100,000? 200,000? When the numbers reached a certain level, the atmosphere it produced was shocking. Zhuo was shocked by this ocean of people in front of him. How come there are so many people? Zhuo pulled Lan Tianlong over and asked in a low voice. Lan Tianlong's expression was slightly smug. We were stupid, not many paid attention to us when we first tried to recruit people. Then someone asked if we were in the same group as you, and then I realized why we are failing. So I used your reputation and it became like this. My reputation? Zhuo gaped and was speechless. Brother, everyone saw how you stopped Lin Qian's sword strike. Now that the city master is gone, the one with the most reputation is you. Well, everyone believes in you. Lan Tianlong patted Zhuo's shoulder and said seriously, Brother, everyone's lives are now in your hands. No matter what, try to save as many of them as possible. Having reported in, he jumped away. Looking blankly at the sea of eyes filled with anticipation, Zhuo felt his throat getting dry and was at loss at what to do. He had told Lan Tianlong to call some people over as a way to increase his presence. At an important time, they could also act as cannon fodder. He had not thought of saving other people. But now, when he saw the dense sea of people and the faces that were looking at him, for some reason, his heart felt suffocated. Why was it like this? Zhuo lost his concentration. He was not a saint and he did not uphold the precept of justice, nor did he believe he was a hero. He even felt that he was a scoundrel. He was selfish, greedy, cold-hearted. He could do anything for victory, sacrifice people unconnected to him to save his people. He didn't feel any pressure or guilt when he did that. When the world was like this, who could be responsible for others? But looking out at the sea of quiet people, with hopeful eyes and faces covered in dust, he could not bring himself to say those words. Completely silent. The crowd was so large that they had to stand on the ruins and at the corners. Some people were alone, some were hugging each other. They were looking up. Tens of thousands of people were looking at Zhuo. They were waiting for a miracle to occur. In their minds, Xiao Emogu was another term for miracle. On him, the light of miracles repeatedly flashed. People hoped that a miracle would occur, just like in the past. They were waiting for Xiao Emogu to say something. Princess Xia and the others looked at the densely packed crowd, and then at the tiny figure in the sky above the crowd. Their expressions were filled with shock. They were astounded by the scene in front of them. They had also underestimated Zhuo's influence. The times create heroes. Zhuko couldn't help but murmur. No one could take their gaze away from that youth carrying the anti-dragon claw on his back. A strange look flashed through Princess Xia's eyes. She seemed to murmur to herself, "You can always bring hope and bravery to others." Xiao Emogu's figure in the sky suddenly moved. Everyone unconsciously stopped breathing. They had a feeling that a scene that they would never forget was about to begin. Zhuo moved, and the anti-dragon claw on his back also moved. He faced the gazes of the people and slowly spoke. His voice was hoarse and deep as it passed through the air. "You have surprised me. I am shocked and speechless. I do not know why you have chosen me. I do not understand." He shook his head as though he was narrating or speaking to himself. "You leave me not knowing what to do. Truthfully, it is very rare for that to occur to me. You do not know me, we are not personally connected nor have we interacted before. I'm very shocked that you have chosen to put your trust in me. But I have to tell you I don't have a good solution." Many people showed disappointment but they were still silent. Outside the curtain are the Ming bandits. You know better than I do how cruel and vicious they are. If I had a battalion of the same scale on my hands, maybe I would have some confidence, but I do not. I am just like all of you, afraid, terrified, and hopeless. I know that the possibility of breaking through is not high. They have never taken hostages. I will die just like all of you. Some people started to tremble, some had hopeless expression, and some started to cry and sob. The pairs of eyes that had been bright with hope gradually dimmed. Yes, they are the Ming bandits. In front of them, we are weak like newborn lambs. In their eyes, we are newborn lambs. They are waiting for the curtain of water to disappear and then have a full meal. We will definitely die. Zhuamo's last sentence was like the call of death. Many people were unable to bear it any longer. They fell to the ground and sobbed. We are definitely going to die. Zhuamo seemed to repeat this like he was speaking to himself, but his words caused many people to raise up their heads and look at the youth in the air. But I do not plan to stop resisting. I do not plan on delivering myself under the butcher's knife like a weak lamb, and let them swallow me down. Yes, they are strong. Yes, they are savage. Yes, we don't have any chance at all. Yes, we will die. But so what? With the last words, Zhuamo's tone suddenly became excited. He glared, his expression twisted, the tendons in his neck bulging. He was like a wolf forced to the corner. But so what? He suddenly increased his volume. His angry shout echoed in Great Peace City like thunder. Everyone was shocked by his words. They stopped crying, they raised their heads again, and they held their breaths. Zhuamo's gaze swept across the crowd. His face was twisted and his voice seemed to come from his chest, deep and with all the power he could muster, trembling. But so what? We don't have a solution, but so what? We are too weak, but so what? I don't want to sit here and wait. I don't want to wait to be captured. Other than fighting, do we have any other choice? Zhuamo looked at them and then shouted harshly, Do we have any other choice? The mo below stopped crying. They wiped away the tears. Those on the ground stood up and gripped their mo weapons. They raised their faces. The terror and hopelessness on their faces slowly faded. The light of determination crept onto their faces. Yes, did they have any other choice? When people find that they don't have any other choices but to stand and fight, their terror would fade. We don't have any other choice. Nothing. I don't know why you have chosen me. I don't know why you believe in me. I don't have a good solution. I don't have a miracle. I can only lead you to do one thing. The light in people's eyes grew brighter like there was a flame flashing deep inside. Zhuamo's eyes were burning, his features twisted as he forced the words out between his teeth slowly. To fight. Fight. Continue to fight. A fight that will end in death. A fight that will not end until death. We will fight to declare to those bastards, so what if they are the Ming bandits? So what if they are stronger than us? He looked crazy, his tone was crazy, he was like a burning ball of flame that illuminated the surroundings. Fire burned in the eyes of everyone in the crowd. The fire burned fanatically. They felt that their blood was boiling. Among the hopelessness, an excitement they never had before exploded from deep within their hearts. We can still fight. We can still fight. We can still motherfucking fight. Zhuamo suddenly grabbed the anti-dragon claw and raised it high up. He shouted angrily, Fight! Fight! What answered him was an exploding volcano, a tsunami of angry shouts, fists raised in the air like a forest of fists. Kill him! Zhuamo shouted angrily. Kill him! Countless voices shouted at the top of their lungs. The ground was trembling, angry waves formed on the ocean, the most minute power was burning. Quick, 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 faster. 1,000 people to a unit, faster. Remember who your unit commander is. What you need to do is follow him. You will attack in whatever direction that he attacks. During the fight, no matter the reason, do not retreat. Even if you are wounded, even if you are about to die. If you retreat, your unit commander will execute you immediately. All of Great Peace City became busy than ever before. Everyone was furiously learning, trying their best to learn how to listen to the orders of their commander and go through the most basic training. The power that the 100 members of guard camp could produce in this fight was too small. Zhuamo decided to use them as the skeleton of their group and made them troop commanders. 1,000 people per troop, this was the largest unit ever. But even so, there were not enough unit commanders. Zhuamo had to pick some experienced MO to act as commanders. Regardless of how chaotic or busy it was, his expression was calm from beginning to end. If he had the time to spare, he would patrol with the anti-dragon claw on his back to raise morale. Even though everything was still a mess, the morale was high. After realizing their hopes of survival were non-existent, people were not left in terror anymore. The residents of Great Peace City had mostly come here for the MO's skill steals. They each had some power and backbone. When they realized that they would undoubtedly die, their spirits were aroused. Since they were going to die, they would pull some down along with them. Fire burned in their chests. All of Great Peace City was like a burning furnace that accumulated power under the black curtain of water. The Ming bandits were waiting. But they were also waiting. Chapter 630, The Eve the third night came. Great Peace City was silent. People were resting and waiting for tomorrow's battle. Today was the last day the water curtain would remain. During these 3 days, the Ming bandits had tried to attack twice but did not break through the curtain of water. In the darkness, the light of the MO matrices rippled. Zhuo Mo was not as cheerful as he usually was. His expression was stern and his gaze that flashed occasionally was so sharp, it seemed to penetrate people's hearts. "What are you thinking about?" Princess Xia's voice came from behind him. She walked next to Zhuo Mo and sat down. "Don't know." Zhuo Mo shook his head. "You have times that you don't know?" Princess Xia was slightly surprised. She smiled and said, "I had thought that you always have a solution, always have confidence." Looking at the silent Zhuo Mo and a face that seemed thinner due to the labors of these past days, Princess Xia asked probingly, "Do you have any confidence in the battle tomorrow?" "No," Zhuo Mo shook his head. "I asked many people in order to learn how powerful the Ming bandits really were. Their battalion can rank in the top 30 of 100 Savage Realm. All of them are lawless killers. Their combat style is vicious and powerful, and they are bloodthirsty. Most importantly, they have many people." "Many people?" Princess Xia went along and asked. Zhuo Mo's gaze flashed as he said lightly, "They have 20,000 people, and of that, about 50% are brigadier level and above. More importantly, they have 20 generals." In these 2 days, he had spent great effort to get specific intelligence on the Ming bandits. Princess Xia inhaled sharply and her face was slightly pale. She was not a flower vase that was clueless about the world. This number shocked her. More than half were brigadier level or above. That meant there were 3,000 brigadier levels. Adding on the 20 general levels, this battalion was terrifying. The Great Peace City had many experts, and if it was a one-on-one battle, 20 general levels was nothing. But if it was in a battalion with 20 general levels leading 3,000 brigadier levels, then the Great Peace City experts who were like a disorderly rabble didn't have any chance at victory. After every raid, if a hostage can defeat a member of them, they can join and survive. The members that are defeated would be eliminated, and the only path left to them is to die. Zhuo Mo's gaze turned into the darkness as he said calmly, "They used this method to become stronger. Ming Hui is talented, and what he is most talented at is a kind of jinji. With this jinji, he created and controls this beastly herd of bandits." The more she heard, the paler Princess Xia got. She had heard of the reputation of the Ming bandits before, but never thought they would be so powerful. She forced herself to calm down. "Is there no way at all?" Zhuo Mo's expression was normal as he said, "It is not that we do not have any advantages. We have more experts than they do. They have more general levels, but in terms of combat power, they cannot compare to us. If the experts on our side can work together, there may be a chance for a breakthrough." Princess Xia did not speak. She understood that the situation was worse than she had imagined. But while everyone is strong individually, they all have complex histories and relationships. It is hard for them to trust each other. They are wary, and if they encounter danger, who will trust their backs to these other people? They will definitely split apart. Unless it is a martial, individual power is not useful on a battlefield like this. Zhuo Mo's voice was slightly low. "There are so many people really beyond my expectations." "That shows that people trust you deeply," Princess Xia comforted. Zhuo Mo grimaced. "Even though I was nervous before, I thought I had some chance of breaking through. But now, there is no way, I can only fight head-on." "We have more people," Princess Xia said with a forced smile. This really is a bunch of rabble. If there was more time, I wouldn't fear these Ming bandits. It is a pity there is only 3 days. Zuoremo grimaced. We can only prepare as best as possible and wait for our fates. Princess Xia sighed lightly. I saw that you were composed these last few days and thought you were confident. So you don't have any confidence either. You think that what I said that day was to motivate them? Zuoremo shook his head. I only said what I thought. It's not that I haven't encountered dangerous and near hopeless situations, but it is the first time I have encountered such a dangerous situation. There is almost no hope of victory to be seen. Princess Xia was silent and the shock on her face disappeared. She suddenly smiled. Your words are frightening, but why do I not feel afraid? Thinking about it, it is because you are not someone that will sit and wait to be captured. Of course. Zuoremo snickered and murderousness appeared on his face. I have never had the habit of quietly taking abuse. Princess Xia covered her smile as she heard this and then sank into silence. Zuoremo was also silent as though he was thinking of something. This time, we have aimed too high. Ming Yu's brow was creased. A hint of worry flashed through her eyes. The Ming bandits had progressed smoothly these past years, but without a doubt, after this fight, they would be known everywhere. Ming Hui looked at the Blackwater curtain and his usual bright smile disappeared. His presence was calm and grave and he seemed a completely different person than when he had been speaking to Bu Heng. He smiled slightly and said confidently, this opportunity is perfect in timing and situation, we have no reason to fail. Even if it is for just the anti-dragon claw, we have to do this. If our strength is damaged, there are chances to replenish it, but if we miss this chance, it will be hard to come by one again. He floated in the air against the wind. His expression was confident as he said proudly, with the anti-dragon claw, my chances of breaking into martial level would increase greatly. We have lots of manpower and experts. If I can break into martial level, we have a chance at the world. Ming Yue felt that her brother's ambitions were too grand. At this time, she did not want to pour cold water on his hopes, but she still gritted out. But after this battle, we will have offended too many factions. Ming Hui laughed. It looks so from the surface, but for them, these losses are not fatal. Adding on how sensitive the world situation is, they do not have the attention to spare on us. Who would dare to offend us? Also, with the anti-dragon claw, even those factions that have martials will not dare to underestimate us. The anti-dragon claw is just a MO weapon. Ming Yu's brow furrowed. It isn't just a MO weapon. Ming Hui shook his head and his expression was full of yearning. If I had the anti-dragon claw, even facing a martial, I would have a chance. But a weapon as vicious as the anti-dragon claw can only be subdued by a martial, Ming Yue asked. Yes, a general touching the anti-dragon claw would be to seek death. However, I have a solution. Ming Hui smiled mysteriously. If I did not have confidence, would I have made such bold moves? This opportunity fell to us because other people are still wary of the reputation of Great Peace City. No one dared to act, so it has benefited us. He then said, Bu Heng is special. He pushed from the shadows and he expected that I will be unable to refuse the anti-dragon claw and the MO skill steel. It is a pity that he has no hopes of breaking into martial level. Otherwise, the Green Yaksha clan would probably be completely different. Ming Yue thought of Bu Heng's conduct and speech. A hint of admiration flashed through her eyes. Yes, Bu Heng is probably one of the most outstanding individuals that I have met in these recent years. However, from his tone, it seems that he is very wary of Xiao Emogu. We should be careful. In front of a battalion, a group of so-called experts can't do anything, Ming Hui said unconcernedly. Ming Yue was just mentioning it and did not keep Xiao Emogu on her mind. She had followed her brother for so many years and saw countless geniuses fall under the MO weapons of their battalion. This was an era of battalions. Maybe she was worrying too much. Looking at her confident brother, she felt that she really was too anxious. This bandit troop that brother had worked so hard to develop had never been defeated before. Great Peace City had many experts but no battalion. The Ming bandits were well experienced in facing the so-called experts. This time, there were a lot more of the experts, but other than the scale, there was nothing different. What she was worried about was that there would be many more fatalities than previously. Not everyone in Great Peace City had ran over to Zhuamo's side. There was another group gathered in a corner. They were the Young Master Flower Protecting Alliance. They had gathered with their guards. The curtain of water is going to disappear tomorrow. The one who spoke was a young man. His face was ashen. The other people paled. Impossible. Really? Where did you hear it from? The people spoke over each other. From the other side. Wang Shen continued. His expression was grave. It will be difficult tomorrow. He suddenly asked, where have all your reinforcements traveled to? They should be here soon. Still too early. They will arrive in a week or so. At this time, one young master suddenly raised his arm and said, my uncle sent a message to me 3 days ago. He said that he might arrive the day after tomorrow. Wang Shen became alert. How many people does he have? He has a battalion, but I don't know the numbers. This young master said docilely. His surname was Wu and his family background was deep. Wang Shen couldn't help but show joy. Great. The Wu family battalion is elite and strong. We will be saved. Then some of the other young masters reported that the reinforcements their families sent were not far from Great Peace City and that they had mostly sent battalions. The Great Peace Treasure Pavilion was a fatal temptation for these families. Their determination could be seen from the fact they had sent battalions. But what to do tomorrow? One person suddenly asked. Everyone became silent and turned to look at Wang Shen. Wang Shen smiled and said, did you forget the other side? They have more people and are a bigger target. The Ming bandits will first pay attention to them. The harder they fight, the more time they buy us. He then said sternly, everyone, hide well and do not venture out. If you offend the Ming bandits, we all die. Everyone agreed. Wang Shen did not forget to increase morale. After a few days, our battalions will arrive and that will be when both sides will be wounded. That is the best situation for us. The morale of the group rose and they all became excited. They discussed how to kill the Ming bandits and Xiao Mo to win the favor of the 3 princesses. No one noticed that 2 people were discussing in a dark corner. What do we do now? Nanmen Shui asked in a deep voice. The Mo skill steel was destroyed by Lin Qian, but that anti-dragon claw is not ordinary. I don't believe that Marshal Yu will not be moved. The others smiled slightly. You will know when the time comes. Chapter 631. Charge. When the light of the sun started to peak above the horizon, the silent Great Peace City seemed to awaken from its slumber. The silence was quickly broken by shouting. The unit commanders were shouting at the top of their lungs, and the drum of footsteps filled the Great Peace City. The expressions on people's faces were quickly changing, from solemn silence to excitement and terror. Some people were trembling, but every person gritted their teeth and entered the battle formations based on the short practice they had previously. The unit commanders made their way back and forth as they tried to rouse the spirits of their soldiers. Even though they had never practiced a battle formation before, this formation that was made of tens of thousands of people caused every person that was participating to feel excitement. Even Zhua Mo had never directed so many people before. Tens of thousands of people were divided into formations that were arranged in one corner of Great Peace City. Both Zhua Mo and Miao Ju knew that while they had a lot of people, they could not withstand a charge from the enemy. All of their preparations were for these greenhorns that had never experienced such circumstances to require them to survive the first charge of the enemy. If they managed to survive the first charge and not scatter, these greenhorns might get accustomed to the atmosphere of the battlefield, and their advantage in numbers would slowly be realized. However, Zhua Mo grimaced when he looked at these people with terror on their faces. His heart filled with worry. Taking these greenhorns into a battle to the death against the wolfish Ming bandits was something that Zhua Mo considered the most unprofitable business he had conducted in his life. But Zhua Mo did not regret it. Since he was going to fight anyway, he would make it a grand one. Looking over, the little formations were so packed that Zhua Mo felt his scalp prickle. There seemed to be a bone-rattling hot flow in his body. It wasn't often that anyone would get to command a battle of such scale. The water curtain was thinning at a visible rate. The noise started to die down. The moment the water curtain finally disappeared, all of Great Peace City became completely silent. The water curtain shattered with a snap and a mist formed. The murderous Ming bandits appeared in people's view. The crowd shifted, and their terrified expressions increased. When the scenery of Great Peace City appeared in front of the Ming bandits stilled. Along the edge of Great Peace City's ruins, small and big battle formations spread out like a dense patchwork that covered over half of Great Peace City. Oh, they are planning to fight back. A vicious smile appeared on Ming Hu's face. But they want to fight back with such a group of rabble? It really is. He shook his head as he spoke to himself, as though he did not know what to say. It caused his commanders to laugh around him. It's good, it will provide amusement for us. Otherwise, it will be very dull, one of the commanders said loudly. I heard that there are many personages in there. He emphasized personages, and desirous expression appeared on many people's faces. Those personages were usually high status, and now they were about to cry and groan under the hooves of their steeds. An excitement they never had experienced before began to rise from within. Their expressions became uncontrollably savage. I heard that all 3 princesses are great beauties. Another commander licked his slightly dry lips and said with a snicker, How about it, boss? Give them to us. Ming Hu's laughter suddenly stopped. He said in a deep voice, Yes. 3 princesses will be given to the 3 with the most merit. It will be up to you to win yourself a beauty. Ming Yu Wei frowned slightly but didn't speak. The other commanders had savage gazes, heated desire and greed exposed without disguise. Boss, I will go first. A man with a hard face jumped out. He was Bao Xiong, one of the mid-ranked commanders among the Ming bandits and a very strong individually. If it wasn't that he lacked skill in command, he would definitely have become a gold battle general. However, while he had not become a gold battle general, based on his outstanding individual power, bravery, and bloodthirst, he liked to charge in the first wave. His subordinates were all battle-crazy, brave, and vicious. They were one of the most powerful vanguards in the Ming bandits. Ming Hui nodded. All right, charge and test them out. Also, Tai Lang, De Hu, cover their flanks and shield Bao Xiong. Bao Xiong acknowledged the order with a vicious light flashing in his eyes. He was extremely excited. The other 2 battle generals also stood up with equal excitement on their faces. In a few moments, the 3 battalions had finished their preparations. There were 1,000 people in each troop. Looking down at the densely packed MO below them, they were filled with fighting spirit. Bao Xiong raised the large axe in his hand and shouted, Kill! Without another word, he led the troop and dove down. The other 2 troops were not willing to fall behind. They drew out 2 crescents as they headed to the 2 sides of the enormous wall of formations below them. The Ming bandits came thunderously, their ear-piercing howls like the wails of ghosts coming to take people's spirits. The air suddenly seemed to boil. Bao Xiong battalion continued to accelerate like a black storm cloud forming and suddenly arriving. Zoom zoom zoom. The high howl gradually became deeper. A shock that was hard to describe flashed across people's minds. Terror uncontrollably spread. The formations on the ground shifted. Most of them had never seen such a terrifying charge before. Do not panic. Do not panic. Whoever flees will be killed. The unit commands yelled and tried to control the situation. But there were still people that lost control of their emotions, turned and tried to flee. Pew pew pew. A drop of water pierced through their chests. Qi Diaoyu, who was nearby, had a frosty expression and he did not even turn to look. Anyone that turned to flee did not survive. The other people immediately ended their own thoughts of escape. At this moment, the shouts of the unit commanders rose in waves. Prepare! Prepare! They seemed to wake up. Looking around as dots of light slowly lit up in the surroundings, they unconsciously followed. The light of the battalion continued to spread. Bao Xiong enjoyed the feeling of a charge. He was immersed in an extreme excitement. His eyes were completely red as his MO's skill continued to gather. He could see the restlessness below, especially the idiots that turned to run. He couldn't help but show disdain. They were really rabble. When he neared, he saw the terror on the people's faces, their trembling legs. This caused him to feel great pleasure which flowed through his entire body like lightning. Truly a herd of white and tender lambs. He suddenly raised the large axe in his hand. The black axe flickered with a cold light. The roiling black mist shrouded his body, and killing intent was like the light that rose in the dark night. Almost at the same time, the combat MO behind him raised the MO weapons in their hands. Balls of white light rose from the battle formations. They were like fish that smelt blood that gathered towards the black axe shrouded in black mist. The large black axe seemed to have a long five-colored tail as it drew out a dazzling streak in the air. The distance between the two sides was decreasing quickly. Seeing the time had arrived, the axe in Bao Xiong's hand suddenly chopped down as he shouted, "Kill! Kill!" The people behind him howled angrily and struck down with the MO weapons in their hands. The light suddenly increased. Countless rays of light formed an enormous five-colored axe energy that was hundreds of zhang long. It came from the sky at the battalion below. The moment the axe energy formed, hair-raising killing intent suddenly swept towards the ground like a twister. Seeing the blood drain out of the faces of the people below, Bao Xiong felt unspeakably good. Just as he was imagining all the people below being destroyed in this blow, the rising shouts interrupted his fantasies. "Kill! Release!" Bao Xiong's snarl froze upon his face. His field of view was immediately taken over by a tide of energy. There wasn't any room to dodge. A strong feeling of danger made him feel he had dropped into an icy crevasse. His burning blood instantly became icy cold. Everything in front of him was white, and he could not see anything else. His mind was astounded. How was this possible? Dodge! Before he could shout any more, he was swallowed by this furious wave of light. He did not have the time to wail before he lost consciousness. When a battalion of 32,000 people attacked together, when over 30,000 attacks merged together, the light that was created was as bright as the sun and had caused the entire sky to turn white. Bao Xiong battalion were like the dry branches struggling in the flood and was immediately swallowed. The enormous axe that Bao Xiong battalion had formed with all their power cut through the angry wave and crashed into the battalions on the ground. Boom! An enormous explosion, rock flew everywhere, and an astounding shockwave of air rushed into the surroundings. A pit that formed was astounding to see among the battle formation. It was like one piece had been erased. Bao Xiong's blow had struck 5 battle formations and a battle formation of 2,000 people had been completely erased. They had lost over 3,000 people. And almost at the same moment, the 2 battalions on the sides acted and the same attacks appeared. 2 enormous explosions. 2 enormous holes appeared on the ground, but the 2 other Ming bandit battalions were not as strong as Bao Xiong. The damage they caused was much smaller, but even so, the wounds and deaths at both locations had reached more than 4,000. Wails and cries rang out. Those MO had never seen such a scene before. Many panicked, especially the battle formations that were closest to the attacks. Screams seemed to spread among the crowd like a plague. No matter how the unit commanders shouted, it was useless and the troops looked like they were about to break apart. Zuo was expressionless. A hit of sharpness flashed through his eyes as he waved his hand at the side. He had predicted this situation before. Those that lower army morale, kill. Those that lower army morale, kill. The loud shouts rang out over Great Peace City in unison. In this moment, countless pillars of blood shot up in the battle formations. Hundreds of MO that had lost courage and fled were killed where they stood. Such powerful and bloody tactics immediately stunned every person. All of Great Peace City was silent, so silent the drop of a pin could be heard. Many people had ashen faces, but no one dared to move. They were quiet and silent. Princess Xia and the others had their faces turn white, and their extremities felt cold. None of them had expected Xiao Emogu, who was usually cheerful and smiling, to have such a vicious decisiveness. Chapter 632, Weakness. Zhuo slowly floated off the ground. His expression was cold, his eyes as sharp as a sword, and he gave off a pressuring aura. The ashen-faced people unconsciously raised their heads. The blank and terrified gazes gathered on Zhuo's body. Those that retreat, kill. Those that do not follow orders, kill. Those that lower morale, kill. The three kill were a gust of cold wind that blew across Great Peace City. The slightly thin figure in the air was reflected in the terrified eyes of the people. Hold on to your ammo weapons. The following clash will be even more cruel, even more intense, and even more people will die. Zhuo's tone was cool. He did not comfort the crowd, and treated them like his subordinates, having to remind them that the battle was about to begin as though this was a usual affair. The battle was just beginning, and what would occur later was even more intense. But for some reason, his words carried an unusual power and caused the terror on the faces of the people to decrease. In their eyes, Zhuo appeared calm and composed, unpanicked. The people here who had lost courage immediately found something to hold on to and gradually calmed. Just now, we killed 3,000 Ming bandits. The crowd shifted. The great majority of people were still anxious, but some of the more daring people became excited. 3,000. The Ming bandits only had 20,000 people in total. For them, 3,000 could be considered to be a heavy blow. They will be afraid, terrified, and angry. The following attacks will be even stronger. Zhuo's voice was flat and cool. More and more people started to understand. Their gazes slowly became bright and the terror was replaced by excitement. They suddenly found that the Ming bandits were still made from flesh, they were mortal, they could die. They suddenly felt that victory was not so impossible. If a few more clashes like this occurred, wouldn't the Ming bandits be defeated? The people who had found hope again had slightly excited expressions. Hold on and we will win. Zhuo's voice was not arousing, nor sorrowful. His calm yet confident voice echoed above Great Peace City. The crowd quieted again as they unconsciously gripped the ammo weapons in their hands. Everyone's eyes had brightened and they were filled with hope. Ming Hu's gaze was dark. He had heard all of Zhuo's speech and did not attack again. The other Ming bandits also showed slight fear. In one exchange, all 3,000 bandits had died and not one had managed to escape. They had never encountered something like this before. Just now, that tsunami-like attack had caused even the sun to appear dim in comparison. The lambs had suddenly showed their fangs and surprised them. This person must be Zhuo. As expected, he is brave and cunning. Ming Hui looked at the anti-dragon claw on Zhuo's back, and his pupils contracted. Ming Yu's face was also astounded, but her attention was not on the anti-dragon claw but Zhuo's words. She had heard Zhuo's cool, murderous, and calming words. She had seen the terrified people gradually settle down, and their determination to resist grow even stronger. The collapse of morale they had predicted did not occur. Such a charismatic person. Their battle formation setup is very unique. Suddenly, Ming Yu spoke up with a serious expression. She was the most outstanding battle general of the Ming bandits. Her judgment always received attention from Ming Hui. Everyone finally noticed the patchwork of battle formations. They were all experienced. Before, they had not paid attention. Now that Ming Yu pointed it out and they looked closely, they immediately noticed what was there. Zhuo is cunning. Among the exclamations came sharp inhales. The Ming bandits were in the sky and could see the setup below clearly. They finally noticed that Zhuo had spent great effort on the arrangement of the battle formations. The dense patchwork of battle formations was like a hedgehog. No matter which direction they approached from, they would face attacks from at least 20 battle formations. Even if the other did not have a battalion, did not have a battle general to direct all the power, but a simultaneous attack from over 20,000 people was enough to cause a headache for any battle general. A battle through numbers. This phrase flashed across everyone's minds. The commanders looked at each other and did not know what to do. This wasn't the first time they had encountered a situation like this, but their past experiences told them that any group of civilians, no matter how large, were a herd of lambs when they faced a battalion. If they took a few losses and charged at the enemy, the rabble would scatter and then the enemy would be easy prey. But what was in front of them was not the same as any of their experiences. They had lost 3,000 people, but the enemy had lost 7 to 8,000. Rationally, the enemy ranks should have started to flee and collapse now. But they did not flee. Xiao Mo's vicious and decisive act hadn't just stunned all of Great Peace City, but also astounded the Ming bandits. What surprised them even more was that Xiao Mo had soothed the anxiety and fear of Great Peace City with just a few words. When had these normal people gained such strong and resilient minds? Even the Ming bandits that had killed their way from mountains of corpses could not understand what was occurring in front of them. Then Ming Yue pointed out what was special about the others' setup. This caused them to all become more wary of Xiao Mo. Is there a solution? Ming Hui spoke. He knew that his younger sister was very smart and always relied on her for battle tactics. Ming Yu's gaze stared at the enormous battle formation battle under them without a word. They all knew that she was pondering how to break the formation. They didn't dare to breathe in fear of disturbing her. A moment later, her eyes suddenly lit up and she said, "This battle formation belt is unique, but it is not invincible." Everyone became alert and perked up to listen. They have many people, but they are not a true battalion. They do have some cooperation, but when pressured they cannot fight for long. We only need to use the smaller battalions to harass their formation at range and force them to expend their strength. Over time, they wouldn't be able to maintain this. At that moment, we will charge straight at the center. If we can take down Xiao Mo, their ranks will definitely collapse and flee. That is right. Yes. We will dart in and out of range. They won't know whether to fight or not. They will be frustrated. Good method. The commanders gave their praise. Ming Hui also showed joy. Ming Yu's plan was directed straight at the other's weakness. While fighting with numbers was effective, but the weakness of the enemy being untrained civilians was something that could not change. All right, let's do this. Ming Hui ordered. The commanders were aching to start, looking on as the enemy harassed their formation from the edge of their range, and how their attacks kept missing the enemy. Many people had ugly expressions. The Ming bandits definitely are not ordinary people. Princess Xin's expression was terrible. Princess Xia also showed a thread of worry. They are forcing us to waste our power. Almost everyone could see what the Ming bandits intended. But there was no use in that. No one had a good solution. The Ming bandits saw their weakness and did not disguise their intentions. Everyone unconsciously looked at Xiao Mo nearby. When they saw Xiao Mo had a calm face, their mood immediately calmed down as well. He would definitely have a way. Almost at the same time, many people had the same thought. We cannot continue like this. Standing next to Zuemo, Zhu Ke couldn't help but speak. Worry floated onto their faces. If this continued, the outer battle formations would not be able to continue and collapse. Once the collapse began, all of the army would collapse. If this was a well-trained battalion, the troops could be rotated out, but right now, they only had these greenhorns that had been trained for 2 days. If they tried to rotate out at troops this time, it would lead to chaos. But if they did not switch at this time, collapse was just a matter of time. Zuemo nodded. He didn't speak and indicated to Miao Jun. Soon, the outermost battle formations slowly moved back, and the battle formations on the inside slowly advanced. Changing formations for the well-trained battalions was not an easy matter, but for people with 2 days of training, it was impossible. Chaos spread. The Ming bandits perceptively noticed their chance. They dove down howling. The killing intent flooded the air as they charged. The battle formations on the outside became even more panicked. The panic spread. The already unstable battle formations became even more chaotic. At this time, a Ming bandit commander's eyes suddenly lit up. His heart beat rapidly. He noticed that at some time, a faintly discernible path of attack appeared in front of him. The path led straight to Xiao Mo. He then looked at the crowd around Xiao Mo. The princesses and other high-status people were among them. He was so excited he almost stopped breathing. The heavens had blessed them with a good opportunity. If he could capture this group, the battle would be finished. What was in front of him was the fattest piece of meat. If he could swallow it, it would be the biggest accomplishment in this battle. His gaze burned. Without another word, he ordered, "Charge there!" His battalion was well trained and did not hesitate to charge towards where their battle general had pointed. As the Ming bandits charged into their battle formations, it caused the people of Great Peace City to be wary the coming attack. But the people closest to the battalion were not a match for these wolfish Ming bandits. Blood and flesh flew and wails rang out endlessly. This Ming bandit battalion was like a sharp and red-hot knife cutting through butter. It immediately penetrated the ranks and went straight at Xiao Emogu. In the air, Ming Hu's eyes suddenly lit up. His cheeks flushed and he pointed at the crack that was growing. He shouted, "Everyone attack!" The Ming bandits, who were barely able to hold themselves back, immediately complied. Killing intent filled the sky. Chapter 633, Center Formation, Protect Darren. Shu Long's angry shout exploded like lightning among the panicked screaming. The other people around Zhuo Mo seemed to wake up. They found to their shock that danger had snuck so close to them, and without realizing it, the Ming bandits had charged and had arrived in front of them. The Ming bandits had gotten so close, vicious and savage expressions of the Ming bandits could be clearly seen. They could even see the pulsing muscles on these faces and the trembling whiskers and that animalistic and bloodthirsty murderousness. Zhu Ke's head rang and his expression changed. He suddenly reacted and shouted at the top of his lungs, "Protect the princess!" The personal guards of each faction sprinted from where they had been, leaving the formation belt a mess, in disarray with people falling back on every side. People turned and ran like crazy. These people had been held together by Zhuo Mo. Now that the enemy was heading straight for Zhuo Mo, their weak cooperation was immediately exposed. Terror and hopelessness furiously spread throughout their ranks. The enormous battle formation belt immediately collapsed. The guards of the princesses uncaringly abandoned all the other people. Their eyes were red as they sprinted to where the princess were. Guard Camp and Celestial Plant Guard were also sprinting against the fleeing flood of people to fly to where Zhuo Mo was. Princess Xia's face was covered in terror. Her complexion was white. The panicked crowds were running everywhere. The snarls of the Ming bandits entered her eyes. All she could hear was the sound of killing, shouts and screams. She was bewildered. How had it come to this? Her gaze moved around blankly. Her gaze stopped on a thin figure. Slowly, her eyes became focused and a thread of hope rose in her heart. As usual, his face was still indifferent and wore a cold expression, but this time, inside the indifference, she noticed something that made her mind tremble. He was not panicking. Zhuo Mo stood upright with an indifferent expression as though he did not see what was happening around him. The Ming bandits rushed forward extremely quickly. The first battalion that fell had shown the skill of the Ming bandits. In only a blink, they breached the outer formations and reached the center formation. Almost all the general levels and important personages were gathered in the center formation. This Ming bandit troop seemed to poke the hornet's nest. The battle immediately reached a high. MO that could cultivate to colonel and general level were experienced in battle. When they realized that it was their lives were on the line, the power they could produce was astounding. They were not as well trained as the Ming bandits, nor could they work together like them. But the chaotic situation and the extremely short distance between them made it perfect for them to fight. Zhu Ku, Xia, and the middle-aged attendant, who were all near martial level, were unstoppable in this moment. Zhu Ku moved like a ghost. Once he entered the Ming bandit ranks, everywhere he passed, bloody mist sprouted up behind him. Xia was persistent and his steps were as heavy as mountains. No one could stop his advance. The long spear in his hand seemed to weigh 3,000 caddies. Blood and flesh flew when it came into contact with his spear. The middle-aged attendant formed a claw with her hands and grabbed at the air. Those Ming bandits that were targeted were ripped into pieces like puppets and died before they could make a sound. The other experts were also in a killing fury. Like countless roaming fish, They passed through the formation and engaged in close combat. Almost 80% of the experts on the Great Peace MO rankings were here. Yu Shuang had not recovered from his wounds, but Chang Yuanhao was still healthy. Adding on Qi Diaoyu and the others, this place held the elite of Great Peace City. In almost a flash, this Ming bandit troop died. Even its battle general was killed in 5 moves when Zhu Ku and Xia working together. This result caused people to cheer and dance. Ming Hu's expression was normal. In his eyes, these people at the center formation were just fighting within a cage. Those experts were troublesome, but if he was willing to spend the time and effort, he had many ways to deal with them. Even the strongest expert could not beat overwhelming numbers. Battle generals focused the attacks of the entire battalion. Even though their attacks were not as varied as individual attacks, they were powerful and not something that an individual person could stop. Even experts were unable to withstand the charge of a battalion, especially experts that could not work together. A cold light flashed through Ming Hu's eyes. Old Tu, De Hong, go scatter them. The 2 battle generals acknowledged the order. At this time, Great Peace City's battle formation belt had scattered as people fled. The barriers defending the center formation had decreased greatly. The 2 had burning gazes. The center formation that had lost its shielding was like a beauty who was undressed and perfectly displayed in front of them. Looking at the determination and spirit on the faces of their subordinates, the 2 didn't feel afraid at all. They did not feel sorrow about the deaths of their compatriots. It was the opposite. When the battalion had scattered the crowds previously and expended the power of the experts, it made the situation advantageous to them. A group that could not work together was delusional to think it could withstand a battalion's charge. The 2 exchanged a look and found the fighting spirit in each other's eyes. You go left, I'll go right. All right. Without any delay, the 2 left on their own. Guard camp had assembled the quickest even though they were not skilled in speed. Before the charging Ming bandit battalion had been exterminated, they had finished gathering and stood silently around Zhuemo. They were fully alert. The battle just now had not expended their power. Guard camp with calm expressions surrounded Zhuemo, who wore an indifferent expression. People couldn't resist looking again. In the middle of the chaotic battlefield, they were so eye-catching. The Ming bandits are only worth this much. In the middle formation, a brawny man couldn't help but say, yes, someone really exaggerated their abilities. What was the use in making such a fuss? I thought that they really had some skill. Another man who had a hard face said disdainfully with narrowed eyes. Shu Long and the others glared angrily. The neck of the man who had just spoken suddenly bent at a strange angle. His eyes were wide, his face like a balloon. Zheng Lianer serenely spoke, I do not like hearing this kind of posturing. Everyone inhaled and looked in shock at Zheng Lianer. This Mo female had fought Lin Qian head-on and her power was deep and hard to predict. Having finished gathering, the celestial planet guards had slightly ashen faces. Miss power, skill, and thoughts were all hard to predict. Zhu Ku was slightly displeased by Zheng Lianer action. He was about to speak when his sleeve was pulled. Princess One was pulling him as she shook her head. Zhu Ku stilled and became silent. The center formation became silent. They are about to attack. Suddenly, Xiao Mo Ge's cool voice interrupted this silence. He seemed to not have noticed the movements behind him. He nodded at Shu Long, who immediately understood. Guard camp started to move. Zhuemo then turned and said to Miao Jun, go. Miao Jun did not speak and looked deeply at Zhuemo before turning. A short while later, the Celestial Planet Guards and Tang Fei Battalion finished gathering. Do you need help? Princess Xia asked worriedly. Zhuemo shook his head. No, be careful, the other is about to attack. His voice was not loud, but everyone heard it clearly. The crowd immediately shifted. They had all seen the power of the Ming bandits' charge. They might have just killed 1,000 of the Ming bandits, but everyone understood if all of the Ming bandits all charged, they would be in danger. Zhu Ku and the others were the strongest among this group, but even an expert of his level could not directly face the charge of a 1,000-member battalion. 2 battalions separated from the ranks of the Ming bandits. They even reorganized themselves to guarantee that their charge would be powerful. At this time, the crowds had not completely dissipated. However, there was no one in 1 li of the center formation. This distance was enough for them to prepare a charge. Kill! The 2 battle generals shouted angrily. The 2 battalions were like 2 floods bursting through the dam. Kill! The unified shouts of 2,000 people shook the surroundings. The sky full of killing intent rushed down at Zwarmo and the others. The 2 battalions worked well together, one on the right and one on the left. The enemy would not know whether to protect the head or the tail. A howl that was soul-shaking once again filled the air. At this moment, in the center formation where Zwarmo was, a ball of gray mist suddenly rose. Almost at the same time, Shu Long and Miao Jun, who were in the gray mist, shouted at the same time, "Kill!" Mist hand seat. The people who were surrounded by the gray mist exclaimed. Even Zhu Ku, Yu Shuang and the others showed astonishment. They were knowledgeable and knew that such a practiced, mist hand seat, would only come from a person with a mo physique. However, their attention quickly shifted to the incoming collision between the 2 forces. Zhu Ku and the others wondered. Xiao Mo Gu seemed to have prepared for this situation beforehand. Had he planned this? But no matter what, they did not have a chance at a breakthrough. Did he have something else up his sleeve? The 2 Ming bandit troops clearly had absorbed the lesson of the battalion which had fallen before them. They made a loud ruckus, but they held some strength back. When the gray mist appeared without warning and covered the entire center formation, the 2 felt slightly wary. From where Miao Jun was, an enormous blue blade energy broke through the mist and headed for the battalion opposite it. Good move! De Hong's eyes flashed viciously. He was overjoyed as he attacked. A faintly red wheel of light flew straight at the blade energy. Boom! A great explosion occurred between the 2 battalions. The battle generals on both sides had no intentions of holding back. In this moment, they also attacked. No matter how strong the shock wave from the explosion was, the strange gray mist was not affected at all. Almost at the same time the explosion happened, from the gray mist, countless arm-length blue blade energies shot out like rain. They zipped through the air and covered the sky. Going against the air wave of the explosion, the blade energies were affected. Their paths became chaotic and hard to predict. De Hong's expression suddenly changed. A phrase suddenly jumped out of his mind. Gold Battle General. The other was definitely a Gold Battle General. Such a practice charge was something only a Gold Battle General could perform. Chapter 634, Cut Off Gold Battle General. There were many that saw this attack. Those that were gathered here were the best experts of Great Peace City, who wasn't knowledgeable. But no one had thought it would be Miao Jun. In a flash, people finally recalled Xiao Emogu and Miao Jun's battle. In the past, people had only known that Miao Jun had lost to Xiao Emogu. Many people had seen the battle in person, but no one had thought that Miao Jun was also a gold battle general. Many people showed expressions of vexation. It had to be said that in this present chaotic state of affairs, a gold battle general was much more valuable than an expert. There were also many people that had thoughtful expressions. They found to their shock that Xiao Emogu had experts among his subordinates and strong generals. Some other people were pondering, had Xiao Emogu realized that Miao Jun was a gold battle general back then? The intense battle quickly caused everyone to suppress their puzzlement and turn back to observe the battlefield. The ongoing battle was important to them. Yi Ling's mist hand seat covered all of the center formation. With the help of the Mo embryo, Yi Ling had managed to cultivate his Mo physique. If his gray camp was present, his offensive capabilities would be multiple of what it was before. Right now, he could only squander his talents doing what he had. But the gray mist gave the best concealment to the middle formation, including the position where Shu Long was. Shu Long's guard camp was just 100 people, yet these 100 people were much stronger than they had been previously. Shu Long had also processed a Mo embryo. Wen, Nan Yu, and the other core members had also exploded in power. But after Shu Long's shout of kill, they became a silent beast hidden in the mist. Several of the enemy attacks entered the gray mist and didn't even cause a stir. Under the gray mist, guard camp was like a black hole that could swallow everything. The Ming bandit commanders' expressions became grave. At this time, they had the advantage of offensive capability. They did not fear Xiao Emogu and the other fighting back, but they feared that there would be ambushes and traps inside the mist. The waves of attacks were swallowed and didn't cause any response. The damned gray mist made it impossible to see what was happening inside. Old Tu hesitated slightly before he quickly made a decision. Charge. He understood Ming Hui very well. Ming Hui appeared as though he was a very relaxed commander, but at such a crucial time, if they did not do their best, Ming Hui would execute them without even a frown. But Old Tu was careful and not as rash as Bao Xiong. He only had 100 MO soldiers leave the ranks and leap into the gray mist. Old Tu's eyes were cold. Even if these 100 MO soldiers were the elite of his subordinates, his expression didn't change at all. He stared closely at the gray mist and waited for the moment his subordinates charged into the gray mist. The other 900 people silently waited. 100 MO soldiers howled angrily as they charged crazily at the gray mist. Their faces were twisted, madness, hopelessness, and bloodthirst mixed together in their reddened eyes. It was just 100 people charging, but there was suddenly a suffocating presence. The gray mist remained strangely quiet. The strange blue blade energies shrieked as they viciously pierced De Hong's battalion. Pew pew pew! Countless bloody flowers blossomed in the air. The sharp blade energies easily penetrated the bodies of the Ming bandits. Wails sounded, and 70 to 80 figures lost control and fell down. De Hong's battalion was left missing a piece as though it had been bitten off. A blue energy suddenly flashed past De Hong's face and caused a small bloody mark. His expression was dark. The other was stronger than he had imagined. Gold Battle General. As expected of a Gold Battle General, the other's moves were much more skilled than his. Both sides had attacked at the same time, and the other's second attack wave had come so fast that they were unable to react. His subordinates didn't have the time to dodge or fight back before they were hit. Other than some that had high-level MO skills and managed to stop the attack, almost all the other MO soldiers died where they were. The other's ability as a battle general far surpassed him. Watching from afar, Ming Hu's eyes moved. These people fighting back were much hardier and stronger than he had predicted. When Miao Jun acted, all the commanders in the Ming bandits changed expression. Ming Yu Wei's expression also became serious. They only had one thought: it was lucky this person did not have many people in his battalion. If this Gold Battle General had 2,000 to 3,000 people in his battalion, then the Ming bandits would suffer great losses this time. Fortunately, everyone had clearly saw that Miao Jun only had 700 or so people. Even the cleverest wife could not make a meal without any rice. No matter how strong a Gold Battle General was, if he did not have a matching battalion, his threat level was much lower. Gue-san, go help De Hong. Ming Yu Wei did not hesitate and ordered. Yes. A man with stark features came out and acknowledged. Everyone finally sighed in relief. Ming Hu's expression cleared up slightly. With a nod, he said, De Hong is good on the front lines, and there is nothing more to be said of his individual bravery. However, he is slightly lacking as a battle general. It is normal for him to lose slightly against an expert like this. The expressions of other people eased when they heard this. They had also been slightly scared by Xiao Emogu's endless bag of tricks, their confidence unconsciously being damaged. Only when Ming Hui said this did they manage to realize it. Yes, no matter how many tricks the other had, he didn't have an outstanding battalion. With only commanders and no soldiers, he was just struggling for nothing. Thus, no matter how many tricks they have, when our army charges, everyone will turn to ashes. A subordinate shouted. Everyone's expressions eased and they nodded in agreement. Just at this time, wails suddenly came from the gray mist. Everyone tensed. Supported with just his own power, Yi Ling's mist hand seat finally could not tolerate the charge of Old Tu's battalion and crumbled. The scene inside the mist was displayed in front of all the people. Yet everyone was stunned by this scene. Countless dismembered limbs were scattered near the center formation. Shu Long's troop had set up a very strange battle formation. At some unknown time, many strange pillars carved in script had appeared around them. Old Tu seemed crazy as he charged at the battle formation. However, this battle formation that was just made up of 100 people was like a meat grinder. No matter the number of people, they would be ground to paste as they charged in. Bloody mist exploded and then rained to the ground successively. Under the feet of Shu Long's battle formation, blood flowed like a river and the soil was dyed red. The fishy tang of blood spread. The ground covered in broken and cut limbs made this place seem like hell. Old Tu had gone crazy due to the scene. He continuously charged the others' battle formation as though he didn't want to live. Yet the others' battle formation was as steady as rock, unmovable. Mingyu Wei's expression really changed this time as she exclaimed, "Mo grinding disc." She paused and it appeared as though she didn't dare to believe her eyes for 3 whole breaths. But she had extraordinary composure and quickly recovered. She shouted harshly, "He Lang, reinforce Old Tu from the side." "Yes." A man with a cold expression affirmed. Mingyu Wei suddenly gritted her teeth and raised her head. She said with determination, "Big brother, we should charge." She had a bad feeling. Ming Hui stilled. The situation was not clear yet. Even he felt slightly scared at the others' endless tricks. His original intention had been for his subordinates to test the waters, and after the enemy strategy was clear, then he would crush them in one go. But he was a ruthless and formidable person. He knew that if his younger sister recommended this, then it really was a pivotal moment. He knew that he was not his younger sister's equal at directing battle, and he usually followed what his sister said. Hearing this, his gaze became stern and murderousness flashed. He nodded without hesitation and shouted, "Prepare to charge." Everyone's hearts shook, and they roared their acknowledgement. At this moment, Shu Long and Miao Jun's battalions surged with power, unleashing powerful attacks. In that moment, they actually suppressed the Ming bandits that were now twice their number. All the Ming bandit generals paused with disbelief. No matter how many tricks they had, they could not do something like this. Mingyu Wei reacted the fastest. "Careful, they are about to flee." As expected, the 2 troops at the center formation dropped everything and charged towards a group of fleeing Great Peace City citizens. They wanted to use the chaos to escape. A cold smile floated on Ming Hu's lips. He suddenly shouted, "Kill!" The Ming bandits responded and all of them accelerated. Like a thundering flooded, they headed to Xiao Mo guest group. The 2 sides were extremely fast. Ming Hu's fighting spirit boiled and only Xiao Mo Gu was inside his view. His gaze was tightly focused on the dragon claw-shaped object on Xiao Mo Guest's back. The anti-dragon claw. Starting from today, the anti-dragon claw was his. With this thought, his body felt heated, and his gaze also burned. Xiao Mo Gu and the others were also fleeing very quickly and had almost reached the crowd. They wanted to flee? A dark and cold smile floated on Ming Hu's mouth. He seemed to not see the panicked crowds along the way, and his gaze was closely locked onto Xiao Mo Gu. The Ming bandits also ignored the crowds that they flew by. Xiao Mo Gu and the others were clearly slowed down by the speed of the princesses. The distance between them quickly decreased. The Ming bandits charged at Xiao Mo Gu and the others with a destructive presence. Every battle general gave their all at this time. Their gazes were excited as fighting spirit burned. The attacks on their hands were waiting to be let out. When the distance grew closer, their attacks would drown Xiao Mo Gu and the others. Under such an attack, no one would manage to survive. Xiao Mo Gu and the others had entered their range of attack, but Ming Hui did not give the order to attack. He licked his lips like a cunning wolf waiting for a chance to give a fatal strike. A bit closer, just a bit more, and their attacks would manage to completely cover all of them. At this time a vast cold killing essence suddenly covered the Ming bandits, like the icy wind that rushed upwards from the ground. This wave came very suddenly without any warning. The killing essence was so cold that in one instant, the Ming bandits found that a layer of frost had appeared on their bodies. An enemy attack. Ming Hu's mind rang out. "Kill!" The cold voice seemed to be filled with a strange power. Everyone's hearts jumped. Before the sound dissipated, the unrestrained killing essence was like an exploding volcano that shot at them. The next scene caused their souls to almost leave their bodies. That you're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.